Call the meeting to order, City of University Heights City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 12th, and all council is present. And the first order of business is approval of minutes, January 8th, regular council meeting, and then the January 15th special council meeting and work session meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to any of these? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. First of all, if it's okay with the council, I'd like to move some order of business, the third consideration of Ordinance 235 up. Is that okay with council to move that up first? Okay, so third consideration of Ordinance number 235 relating to law enforcement training against implicit bias, providing for data collection and reporting, and establishing a citizens advisory board. Nick, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would just make the motion.
And
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Herbold and second by Caseta. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I want to, first of all, thank my peer colleagues, members of council, the mayor, in particular our residents and members at large of the community, the various civil rights organizations that helped us, such as the NAACP with drafting our ordinance, with their strategic input and technical assistance and understanding many of the clauses, for our chief of police who worked with us on many hours in putting it together to make sure that it was sized for University Heights. I want to express a high degree of gratitude for your collaboration, and I want to thank you for leaving our city in a proactive and prospective, healthy state where we won't have implicit bias as part of our enforcement operations. Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Casada.
Aye.
Herbold.
Aye.
Maher.
Aye.
Moore. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, carried unanimously. I understand, since the press is here, they'd like some pictures of the council together with Kevin Sanders. Is that right? No? Would you like to do that? No. Kevin wanted a picture. That's who wanted the picture. Kevin said. So I'm going to call for a little break for a picture taking. So we'll all stand by Kevin.
I'll take the photo.
Before we move on, Kevin Sanders.
As I said earlier, unfortunately, the state president of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP, Betty C. Andrews, is unfortunately unable to make it tonight because she lost her son last week. So I would like for everyone to keep her in your prayers. But Betty was definitely instrumental with polishing the ordinance, and she's really excited. And she wanted to say a thank you to the city council as well as the University Heights Police Department. And I think this is a great deal for the state of Iowa, not only for University Heights, but the city council and the police department have set a huge precedent for the rest of the state. And you all are to be commended, so I would like for everyone to applaud them for their efforts. And so that's all I have to say, but thank you. And there's a lot of work to be done, but we're taking a step to move in the right direction. Thank you.
Give Betty our best, too.
I will.
Condolences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for all your help. So we'll go on to, we're going to go back to police later committee, and we'll go to, here's Jim Glasgow. Jim, I know you just arrived. You wanted to give the hotel update. I know I told you 7:15, but I'm 3 minutes early. So,
Get right into
Jim Glasgow is a developer with the hotel, the Courtyard Marriott, that's going in University Heights. And he has some photographs, some copies of pictures for us. Thanks for coming quickly, Jim. I appreciate it.
Wow, you're so safe.
Good timing.
Okay. Well, what we're doing right now at the hotel is we're working with the engineers. The footing details in that hotel require geo piers, which are piers that go down in the ground. I'm not sure how far we're going down in, 20 feet, maybe 30 feet. So we're laying that out now with the engineers. The drawings that I brought are the latest. I just printed them out today on my printer, so they show the restaurant that we're developing up on the top floor, and that's probably the most dramatic thing, that has changed. Peter Harmon, that's working with us on the restaurant, now wants to put trees inside, so we're looking at the weight distribution. He wants to put real live trees in there, so I don't exactly know what the theme is, but he's got something in mind that requires a lot of plants. So we're working with him on that, on those details. There is when you see the elevation, you'll see that there's a lot of glass on the side that overlooks the railroad tracks and looks towards Kinnick Stadium. So his seating and bar layout and bathroom layouts are pretty well developed now, and we're working with the structural engineers to bring all that down on top of the hotel. And that's most of our time right now is spent on structural elements. And don't take the colors. The colors on that are not actually very consistent with what's going to be there. I mean, they're pretty dark, so we'll have better renderings as we finish up. Other than that, we're pretty well shut down on site as far as anything that we can do, and probably will be for another couple weeks. We're going to try and get back in there and start continuing on the storm sewer part of it, but it's so bad out there that all we're doing is plowing snow. So. But
Are there any questions?
Other than that, things are moving along. I hope
Yeah,
we're gonna try and get started in about within 60 days or so. We'll be submitting to Josiah we're gonna try and get all the footing details and structural details for the footing and the foundation to Josiah probably within 30 days or so, and let him start reviewing that. So.
For me, I continue to just
Into the microphone, please.
want to make sure that wall in between what appears to be the outside seating area and I don't know if they're air conditioning units.
Yeah.
Just that's as tall as possible. That's where I'm concerned
Okay.
place would go back.
Well,
to the community, but-
here's what we were debating yesterday with the architects and the restaurateur is if you look at that perimeter railing, I mean, we're talking about either 8-foot glass, similar to what they had at the View restaurant, or whether we're going to. He really wants open railing with maybe like stainless steel cable. He wants to be kind of open to the air. But on the other hand, we're putting fire pits up there too. So so the glass walls really work better for that because of the wind. And so that's still kind of in discussion, whether that may be a high glass wall, maybe an 8, but the wall between the one you're talking about, that'll be a solid.
The short one. How
Yeah.
tall is it? It looks like it's shorter than
Well, like I say, this
These
is
are
still,
not detailed.
yeah, a work in progress as far as that goes. The requirement for a railing up at that 6th-story level is 42 inches. So, but we're talking from 42 up to 6 or 8 feet, depending on whether we go glass or some other type of railing. And like I say, that hasn't been decided yet. Obviously, we're going to meet the requirements for safety, but I'm leaning more towards the higher glass, and Peter he kind of wants open, so we'll see who wins out on that one. Other than that, and like I say, those are kind of the final details where we're at today. But
I
thought
Yeah.
there was going to be like a pergola with solar panels going over the open
Yeah,
part.
that's-
Is that still happening?
Well, it's more now that's if you look at that roof, it's a sloped roof. The panels would go on the sloped roof. But the pergola was actually on the outside seating area. And we don't have that shown on this one just
So
because
you're
we're
still planning for solar panels on the sloped roof, even though that's pointing like northwest.
Well, yeah, either that or we have to put them on the flat roof area.
Okay.
We've still got solar stubbed up there, and
Maybe that.
yeah, Peter, the restaurant guy, is way more focused on what it looks like on the inside and his idea of how he wants the seating and you know he's got sort of separate little areas. Well, he calls them cocoons, so that everybody has when they are in their seating area, they have sort of not private, but you're in your own little space. So he's detailing a lot of that for us, that what he wants, and when we get done with the structure, then we'll deal with some of the other mechanical elements. We still have a lot of heating and air conditioning and mechanical details to work out once we get the final restaurant design, which we're real close to that right now. So the next issues we'll be dealing with will be mechanical issues and air conditioning and heating and things like that. So probably there's so much glass there that we're probably going to embed in for heat in the whole restaurant, just because it's got so much glass there that the only way it's going to really be comfortable is probably radiant heat in the floor. So, and the outside patio area that you're looking at is a raised platform on top of the roof, which means, I don't know if we're going to have a wood floor there or a stone floor. Again, that's Peter and I are discussing different versions of a raised patio area, and that's on that outside seating area. That's so like I say, this is not the final, but probably within a week or two we'll be getting closer to where I can submit something to you that you can actually look at, that it's what he wants anyway. So
for me, just to be clear, I mean, to me, it's more the noise issue going back into the community.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
and, obviously, I trust the safety part of it is going to be.
Yeah.
It's just the
Yep.
noise.
Well, we are talking to the glass manufacturers right now about different sound ratings. Now, obviously, solid glass is going to be better than an open wire mesh. That's why I think that's going to be good on that outside patio area. Although that's pretty much all directed.
Mostly toward the railroad.
Yeah, it's really on the opposing side. So, but I think in the end we're going to end up with heavy glass. The issues we were discussing about yesterday as well. If somebody would ram into it or something, are they going to be able to break through it? And it's, I guess, since they have it on the 14th story of the restaurant downtown, it's they're not worried about it there. But although it is stepped back in too as well, so there's a parapet wall that's out beyond the glass. And I don't know if it shows it there or not, but so.
Thank you,
Like I say,
Jim.
that's-
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, you can have those if you want. Anybody that wants to.
Thank
take
you so
further.
much for
Okay.
coming.
Yep.
I appreciate it. We have presentation of city examination, and John Olson is in Charles City and unable to drive tonight because of the weather. So we're going to look at March 12th and see if the weather improves at the next meeting. And then I wanted to ask the public first. There's public here, and we're going to go to the budget. But does anybody from the public wants to speak and doesn't want to wait until after the budget? Do they want to speak now, or are they planning on staying to speak?
I would like to speak, but
Okay.
because I plan on staying for the budget.
Are you going to plan on staying through the? Okay. Well, thank you, Kip. And
Please, can I just confirm that we have adopted the minutes?
We
Go.
did.
Okay, thank you.
we did. And we'll go to discussion of the FY20 budget and hotel-motel tax revenue. And Steve, you were going to start, maybe. You have a microphone there.
Do you have a city, I need to connect this.
Well, I also need the budget, and that's not part of the attachments. Do you have that? You don't have the budget?
Steve has been traveling today in Des Moines, and he has not made the adjustments that were submitted.
You're right.
I have a hard copy.
That would be great. So start, and we'll catch up with technology in a minute.
Okay.
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 She's not going to have it on the screen right away.
Just
That's
start.
fine. Okay.
So,
I'm not going to go through every item line by line. I'm just going to go over some of the more important items, some of the changes this year, and then up to a point where we're at. Maybe a few comments on a few things, but then after that, then the council.
yeah, you have to speak really close into the
Right.
microphone. There you
Right up there.
Right there.
Eat the mic.
So that
huh?
the audience can hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, what I'm going to do is first of all, there is a change in the Olive Court plan from Josiah, but I'm gonna leave that until after we go through this, because this doesn't have any net overall effect, which I'll explain.
Okay.
But what I want to do is just basically go through this. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for doing your work and everything, putting together the budget information for all the departments and stuff. The items that you came up with are generally, for the most part, the expenditures of the city. I fill in a few items here and there. The debt service schedule on the next to last page, I have that part I fill in, but for the most part, all of the numbers that you see on the budget are the numbers that you have turned in over the last couple of weeks. I've gone through those numbers, compared them to the past, and I think the only number that I changed was it was in the administrative for accounting exam and bonding fees. That one, which obviously some good part of that category comes from me, so I adjusted that one off the original list. I think we had something like 11,500, which is actually about half of that amount. So I'm just going to go through the worksheet real quickly here, starting on the first page there. This is the revenues. The first section is property tax, which that I calculated out. You'll see off to the very far right hand column of the screen there's 4. It says autofill. Those are levies for the library, employee benefits, insurance, and let's see, the bus service. Those levies are dollar to dollar, based on what the expenditures are. So those 4 numbers just come directly from the Social Security tax, Medicare tax, the bus contract, very specific items that are lumped into those. The library and the regular levy, those are statutory, based on a certain rate at the most current property. So those are the totals. The grand total is going to be a little over 871,000. That may change just a little bit. There is one number that's estimated right now, and that's the bus contract. But I've allowed for a 2% raise on that. It may end up being 2.5% or 2.25% or something. But overall, the dollar change on that's going to be very, very small, which will change that transit levy by the same amount that contract changes. So it's going to be very minimal change on that. Okay, going on, the Hotel-Motel Tax, this will be new. We have TIF receipts. TIF receipts of $570,375 is estimated by the Johnson County Treasurer's Office, Auditor's Office. Let's see here. Most of the revenues are pretty much the same. There's been some adjustments for, things that change, from year to year. Nothing big on those. Okay, on the second page, the top half of the screen, this is the rest of the revenues and the financing sources. Okay, you'll see there's 4 items that are highlighted in yellow. That's the Olive Court. And the revenues there, we have, these are before the changes. The preliminary estimate was $158,000 developer contribution and a contribution from the city of Iowa City to something in that project there that Josiah could very well handle that. The bottom yellow number, $551,000, was the estimated cost, and the batch, those 2 numbers in the middle, that'll be the funding for it. On this here's $393,000, which is the cost of that project less the contributions to it, which has to be funded somehow from some source, whether it be general obligation bonds. One idea that's been tossed around has been possibly some money from the Olive Court parcel sale.
Is that what the 250 is that you have in there from that? The funding source, the 250,000? You have, I'm sorry, you have
the 250,000.
Yeah, but that doesn't tie the council into funding it that way.
No, not at all.
Okay.
We just have to come up with this funding amount.
Sure.
I was going to suggest that because this project and the bonding, there's some time ahead before this will happen. Same thing like with the land bond, to have the bond people involved in this and then get their input on this, how to use existing city monies, bonding and so forth. Maybe they probably can come up with
Now, if we
a pretty good plan on how to cover that.
It already starts changing it starts changing the levies that we have projected under income, right? It starts increasing the debt levy.
Well,
correct?
the levy is the levy every year
No, I didn't
for
say
property
levy,
tax. It's based on spending. So just because you add another bond, you can't figure the levy increase right off of that. You have to go by the repayment. Yeah.
It is increasing debt somewhere.
So at this point, it's too hard to determine even what a levy would be on that. So right now, because we just went over Olive Court, I'm going to go over the revised numbers here that Josiah sent out. Was this yesterday afternoon? I think it was yesterday or today.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's see, developer contribution and the city of Iowa City contribution is estimated to be $156,300. The Olive Court project cost is now estimated to be $583,000. So we have $32,000 of more cost, $1,700 less revenue. So what we're going to have to do is add another $33,700 to that funding amount of $393,000, and that will take that up to $426,700.
426,700.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And that's to keep the Olive Court project and funding on a break even. Okay, moving on. I'm not going to really spend much time on the expenses. Like I said, I went through everybody's sheets and basically have put it all here. Going up to page 7. The very bottom of page 7. net surplus or loss. This tells us where we're at. Yeah, there we go. Okay. As we've always done in the past, we've always put possible future, street improvement, repair projects and stuff on the list for consideration. Partly for bonding for large projects. Other projects could be delayed depending on their importance, but this is just everything on the table. Right now, we're looking at, with everything with the wish list, we have a deficit here of about $634,000.
512.
Included in that, we have a little bit over $500,000 for 2 considerable asphalt overlay projects, which will need to be funded somehow. And we have a few other larger projects. I would just have to defer on the street stuff to Josiah. There's the EDA, some EDA plan stuff, but that's been on consideration for the last 3, 4, or 5 years. So those projects like that typically will be the first ones to look at, especially those 2 asphalt projects. Probably the better thing to do is they probably will be bonded in the future, but maybe not done in 2020. So maybe it would, just like we've always done, just eliminate the expenditures for those 2 projects out of the budget. That will take this deficit down considerably. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind about this deficit is...
Can you tell us what areas are the largest deficits that you're just on this wish list proposal budget? What areas are the 3 largest deficits?
What specific streets? What areas
No,
are
just
you?
departments, just areas. For example, one is the TIF. It's a big expenditure. The second expenditure would be the police, and the third one is capital projects, which is streets and sidewalks. So I know that you're going into details, but higher level, we have 3 areas that are the largest appropriated departments, and I just wanted you to confirm that or provide us an overcap on that.
Yeah.
Sylvia, can you speak into the microphone? I'm not picking stuff up. Thank
Sure.
you.
Okay. The one thing I wanted to point out here on this deficit, and especially that park bond, or the land bond there, that one is actually over the 10-year payback period, whatever the payback period is on that. It's actually being funded by 3 sources. For the first 3 years, the payment is covered by the local option sales tax money. That was money that came into the city, I don't know, longer ago than I probably think. I'll tell you 5, but it was probably 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. There was, a 4-year period?
4 years.
And the city took in, it's allocated by the state, yeah.
Over $500,000.
City took in over $500,000.
Right.
And out of that, the only money that's been expended out of that so far has been for the wide sidewalk and Sunset sidewalk.
And Melrose.
Yeah. Those 2 major projects there, they were what, 70 or 75 some percent funded by...
They were 80% funded.
State money. And so the local option sales tax money was used for those projects. Right now, we have just a little bit over $330,000 of that local option money left over yet. So in fiscal 2020, we have just a little over $70,000 for principal and interest and fees on that bond that are payable from the local option sales tax money that is already in the bank and the city already has. So we have a timing difference on this. We're showing that we have the expenditure now in 2020, but the revenue was a long time ago.
Right.
So we have.
So it looks like a deficit.
So we 70,000 of this deficit is not what you would call a loss if you were in business. It's money on hand that needs to be spent at some point, and so we're going to have to 70,000 out of this to get down to the point of
Was your number 634 to begin with?
634, just a little over 634,500.
Okay, 500. And then we
So-
can subtract 70 from that.
Take 70,000 off of that.
And it
So it's
brings you
about 565,000.
Okay, so how close are we to balanced if we then defer the Highland Drive asphalt overlay and the Oakcrest Avenue asphalt overlay?
Well, he said that's roughly 500. But Steve's just given an overall right now.
Okay.
Give an overall. We can discuss individuals, and I'll be taking notes at the same time because we need to provide him with adjusted line items.
Mhm.
So in terms of.
But that's the exact question.
Okay. So anyway, so I guess that takes us to the point where, we have $560-something thousand, basically to take off of here. I'll need a detailed list of what reductions we're going to make.
Okay.
The notice of the public hearing will be at the March 12th meeting. The publication needs to be made by March 2nd, which means that the newspaper will need that by Monday or Tuesday of that week, which actually is no later than 2 weeks from tonight. But if I have the final numbers by the end of next week, then I can get the publication made, and then it'll be published either March 1st or March 2nd.
Yeah, we have to be done by March 15th.
Right, so it has to be.
Have to be done by March 15th. So we have to make this deadline.
Right, which means
for
we
the
have.
public hearing.
We have one more meeting to make on this budget to allow the public a reasonable time to understand what changes have been made from tonight and make comments. So I think February the 28th is the deadline for the press citizen publication. So we need to meet a couple of days before that date to agree on what this final budget for fiscal year 20 will look like.
We don't need to do that. We can have it all done. Steve, would you recommend doing that?
Well, it's all public policy discussion, and the public needs
Well, the
to know.
public will be able
Well,
to
here's-
discuss it
here.
at the public hearing.
Can changes be made to the at the March meeting by members of the public?
The only thing that can be changed to what's in the publication, you can reduce the numbers that are in the publication. You cannot increase anything.
Right.
That's right. So if we're subtracting things, people do not have an opportunity to make a public comment on the subtractions happening tonight. Because we can't increase at the March meeting. That's what he's saying. You can decrease.
I know but that's what
But
we're
you
going to
can't
decide
increase.
tonight. We're going to do that tonight, right, Council?
Mm-hmm.
Are we
Right.
going to do that
Right,
tonight?
good effort.
We're going to do that tonight. And so, is there anything? Oh, and then you wanted to talk about maybe the levy or the.
Oh, yeah, on the very last
The levy
page on page 8 here, it says that the levy is $11.19. That's artificially high. On the property, on page 1 of the budget worksheet here, out of the total property taxes, some of that's funded by the state rollback, and some of that's funded by the excise tax on utility property, which I've estimated is going to be about $14,000 or $15,000, which would be enough to make the levy rate right at about $11, compared to not quite $10.94 last year. So we'd probably be looking at 5 to 10 cent increase in the levy altogether.
That's if we continue to increase it, but if we could decrease it, our levy rates could stabilize to a little bit more 3-4 years ago, which is where we were. We don't have to continue increasing.
So Steve, just to review for the council, you started at 634.5, and then you took off 70,000 for the lost money, and then you said we're at 555,
564,
or is it
314.
65?
564, 314.
564,000.
564.
564,500, let's just say 565,000.
Okay, 565. I want to get that
Can
number.
you also, but you and I were discussing this, but you need to add back the expenses that Josiah increased from this morning. He's increasing.
Sylvia, can you talk into the microphone
we're gonna-
closer? Thank you.
We're going to increase the funding to offset those increases there. That's,
Right? So,
So it doesn't change the final number because
because it'll be offset.
because it's a bond offset.
Okay, so the council needs to work from 565 and then go down from there.
Okay.
And so, are you going to stay for some of that conversation?
probably not.
Probably not.
That's beyond
Just
me.
take
Beyond what I do.
notes. Sylvia will take notes. Chris will take notes.
Tell me the number again, Steve.
565. And so we should go through the budget numbers closely. But I think it's good to start with streets and sidewalks because that's where the large amounts are.
That's where we've always
Historically,
traditionally
we
started.
started with
yeah.
streets and sidewalks.
Because we've got a major capital project,
Right.
those 2 street overlay projects, and so
So we're going to need Josiah up at the.
No, I don't need it. I just confirm my formula with Excel. It says I have a typo.
I don't have his exact numbers.
Yeah, 565, yeah. Negative. Oops.
Did you print those off for tonight? Is the budget up there?
I only printed mine.
Okay, because I left mine at home. Everything else.
But she'll put it up on the board. It's just you
I
don't
can't
get
see
to
from
see it. But I think we'll discuss it so you can hear it, and
I need to be involved.
we'll go through the numbers.
With the streets and sidewalks, I'm not
Well,
going to lay down.
you probably have his budget, and I don't have his. I should have copied it.
I'm above.
Oh, wait a minute, I'll look for it.
Okay, perfect.
So,
Just testing out the formula. It's good. It's kosher now. All right.
so are there any other questions for Steve? So we're going to start at 565.
Negative 565.
Exactly. And go through that. So maybe I think we ought to have Josiah come up to, or change microphones with Steve Cool. And you can come up, because we're going to. Thanks,
Okay.
Josiah. Yeah.
Fire.
So, would you?
So I'm sorry for the late change.
Hey,
you know,
better late than never.
The number did increase. It wasn't really a increase. It was, the number was wrong and it was low. So just to clarify, but thanks for capturing that.
And let's see, can we go through some of your capital projects that you have?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have that. Josiah's report.
Just start talking.
Okay,
Okay.
she'll find it.
So the list of projects estimates was, so Olive Court's there on top, but if we just set that aside, as I understand, and look at the new projects that we're asked to be costed out. So we have the asphalt overlays. You recall in 2017, the city did a similar project on George Street to rehabilitate that street. So the two sections we looked at were Oakcrest, from Sunset all the way down the hill to Kosher, which is by Horn entrance, which is be a similar project. And then the other section we looked at was just up the street on Highland, also from Sunset. And that overlay sort of stops just a little bit over the hill past Monroe intersection. So those are the two sections that we looked at. The scope of that project be similar to George, taking off the old overlay, repairing and patching the concrete street below in certain sections where it's in bad shape. It also included updating the storm sewer intakes, particularly on Oakcrest. Those have been there for a long time and they're in bad shape. Then obviously tying into the driveways along there, and also installing a 6-inch subdrain line all the way along that street on the north side. That's a street where we've had a lot of subdrain outlets and things from sump pumps, and so it'd be a good tie-in. Highland Drive, there's no storm sewer up there, so we don't have that cost there. But it's replacing that asphalt overlay, getting rid of those potholes, and also replacing some curb and gutter on Highland where we have a low spot up there that's ponded water for forever. It's been kind of a problem. So those are those two larger projects.
Now, you said potholes. I just want you to be very clear when you say potholes. Are these manageable by our city maintenance individual, or do they require more sophisticated street maintenance?
They do require a contractor, an asphalt contractor.
Okay, so it's not just an ordinary, regular little pothole.
No, this is an issue with the age of the overlay that's been there forever. And
that subdivision was 1960s. It could possibly be as old as 1960s. You think?
Well, the original street for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
The next item we had on there for streets was to do some maintenance, some preventative maintenance work on Highland Drive.
Could you, since we don't have that up, could you spell out the cost of those, please?
The first project we talked about was the asphalt overlay on Oakcrest. That was estimated at $329,000. The next one we talked about was the Highland Drive overlay west of Sunset. That was $176,000. Those two combined are $505,000. The next item on there is the preventative maintenance of Highland Drive to the east of Sunset Street. We did an asphalt overlay project about 10 or 11 years ago. This would be from Sunset heading east past George Street, around the corner on Highland down to the other Kosher connection. And the maintenance there is that as the years go by, the asphalt overlay, the cracks and things come through. And so the preventative maintenance is to get them sealed. Cleaned and sealed.
What happens if council says we won't even seal these cracks? What's the engineering exposure of having these cracks unsealed?
Yeah. It accelerates the rate at which the pavement deteriorates because the water gets in there, and in the winter we get freeze thaw, and so it just
deteriorates.
Yeah, faster.
Does this need like a company to come in and seal?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. The estimate for that is $18,000 up on the screen. The one that Steve mentioned for sidewalks, the ADA transition, that's been there for a couple of years. This is also on Sunset. It's on Highland Drive on the east side. There's 2 ramps there that are not compliant. They have some issues with storm intakes inside them and limited right-of-way width. They don't line up with each other and with the crossings across the street. So I know this always comes up too. The city is under a requirement to address their curb ramps and their ADA facilities on the right of way, but you are not what I'm going to say. You don't have to do it on a certain timeline. So the city has a list, and we try and do some every year. Then obviously, when you do a street project, those ramps get updated. So if you do want to defer it, you're not violating anything at this time.
Historically, how many ADA projects have we taken up in the last 4 years? I thought we had one ADA project per year.
I think we've done at least one sidewalk ramp every year. And like, in the George Street project, we did, 10 of them?
Yeah, I've seen a marked difference in the past 5 years. A big improvement.
So that's number 5. 6 and 7, we've kept as replacement panel and repair placements on local and arterial streets as needed throughout the year when things come up. And number 8 was a line item added to add additional streetlights, I think 5 or 6 in town. Dottie had looked at a map that showed all the existing Mid-American poles in town and which ones have lights and which ones don't, and which areas the lights could easily be added to the poles.
And that cost is minimal to us, except for the monthly electric bill, which is very minuscule also.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And so, council, we have to make some decisions here. If council would take off the $505,000, the 2 capital projects, tell the council, what do you do with those projects? You keep them on a list? Yeah,
I mean, I think they should be kept in mind as opposed to discarded, definitely.
Right. They just get carried over on the budget and at 0 line item.
I just want to clarify for everyone.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the budget. He knows what he does there, but
The problem is that as a city, we have continued to dump projects. And what, as a result, we have here.
Can you talk to the phone?
Can you hear me okay?
Lower it and
Lower it, okay.
Eat the mic.
Help.
Here, I'll get it. Oh, okay. I got it. Can you hear me? And as a result of our deferral, we have a mess that we call a city. And if we aren't going to upgrade our streets and sidewalks and our lights and our infrastructure, we are not a city. And so I think we've got to start looking at where we use our money, what little we have, and begin to build the neighborhoods. Because that neighborhood on the west side of Sunset has got to be at least 50 years old, maybe 60. That is our new part of town. If that isn't glorious, what in the hell is? And the stuff on the other side is a debris pile. So I think we better start looking here at what is reasonable, where we should begin to build our city before it crumbles around us, and start getting tough here and cutting out the frivels and the frou-frou and the things that we aren't absolutely needing, and get the correct infrastructure fixed before it falls all around us. And frankly, some of those streets, if I were looking at purchasing a house in this village, I would never buy here because the community support isn't there, forcing the council to make reasonable decisions.
That's right. I gathered my thoughts to put them together to make efficiencies of time. So I'd like to ask Chris Anderson to please plug me in.
You have to have a bigger HTML plug.
know when it's sharing.
You're up there.
It's not working.
It's not my screen. Did you push it in all the way?
Yep, it is ding. It's your screen.
It's not working. I'm a mess.
It looks like it was added as a second one.
Can you set it up as a primary monitor?
I would have no idea how to do that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Nick, thank you so very much. 2 times thank you today. All right.
You're going to have to talk closer.
Yeah,
I can't
it's-
hear you.
We need to talk, I will.
Speak
I'm
up
glad-
because I can't hear over
Good.
here.
I'm glad that Counselor Donnie Maher has said exactly what's on my mind and the mind of a number of residents that have reached out asking if it's appropriate for them to put pothole fixing requests in the comprehensive plan survey. I've asked them to do that, plus send in their comments to council. But there's an elephant in the room that we need to talk about, and it's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made tonight. I'm personally impacted by those decisions, but I am looking at the good of all of the city for this fiscal year. I'm not looking beyond the fiscal year. I'm not looking to the past. I'm looking to this fiscal year only. We don't have money. We have just enough to pay in and pay out, and we have enough to pick up some obligations on the Swisher track and to continue the wisdom of prior councils who left us an account to work with so that we could make the purchase possible this year without raising taxes to our residents. So here's what I'm thinking that the elephant in the room is, and no one wants to talk about it. There's no other way than to just say it directly, and that is that we are adding, our police budget is by far the second largest department in our budget. This is the green is the TIF and miscellaneous other items, but this is right here, our total streets and sidewalks, by and large, which is our police department. And in all fairness to them, I did a lot of different data mining to figure out what is causing the growth of that sliver of the pie. And the growth, there's really no good explanation. I've looked at wages and benefits. I've looked at salaries. I've looked at commodities. I've looked at different categories within that department, and none of them consistently provide me with a piece of information. So what I have just done is I just did a total percent of the budget comparison, the percentage increases from 2011 adjusted for inflation. Basically what I've done is I compared us to the next door neighbor, which is Iowa City. I've adjusted us for inflation so that it's apples to apples. The dollars in 2011 are now equal to the dollars of 2019, and this is the result. The result is that our PD department is their budget is growing much faster than our neighbor next door. And this to me says, if we adopt unfettered expenditures on the PD tonight, we are sacrificing without justification other parts that make our city possible. And it's our responsibility that our decisions tonight reflect a balanced and citywide approach. And it may recall tough things like, for example, I agree, we can't afford it. Oak Crest asphalt overlay, no matter how wide those potholes are, we just can't afford it. So let's take it off the table. Highland, we can't afford that one either. It's going to impact Monroe, it's going to impact Mahaska, it's going to pick up everybody who goes west into that neighborhood, and then of course all the people that go to Horn. So again, we'll have another fiscal year of deterioration, but it means that the elephant in the room needs to be addressed. We need to look at deferring adding a 5th police officer. Right now, we're running our squad with 4 full-time officers. 1 new salary is open. I say let's defer in order to make sure that other budget line items make it through. Additionally, let's take a look at the 3 police vehicles instead of 5. Let's defer that. There's nothing that allows us to not go back the next fiscal year when we have possibly some more money to pick that up. And then the next one is, we've been bickering over TIF and the set-aside that the city receives. Well, I say let's use it. We have a big project coming up this year. We need to fix it before football game season starts. Let's use that $28,000 and quit calling it something different every fiscal year. No, it needs to be used for cement and asphalt repairs. And the last one that I really don't want to see is deferring city hall improvements. If we make these few changes that are very deferral, some of them are changes and deferrals, we are going to be above line, which means that the mayor won't have to take a cut in her salary to help cover some of this deficit. Some of you may not know, but in this budget, there is like a $900 budget cut on the mayor's salary in order to help offset some of the deficit, which we have anyhow.
But we can't do that because that is set by ordinance.
But the point is,
it's set by ordinance.
we can change the ordinance. The point
We can't.
is, we don't have
We
to.
can't do it. Let's have our city attorney explain it to you.
Anything if we are reasonable tonight with this budget. That's the point, because that's what you're above line, 37,719,
Could I
37,000.
ask, do we have a budget then that violates an ordinance? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so you can't, the council would have to enact an ordinance or change to the existing ordinance to change the mayor or the council's salary. And if the council took that action, it would not take effect until, January 2020.
But that doesn't, this is a proposed budget. We haven't adopted it, so there's no breach of anything, correct, Steve? It's a proposal, which means that if it's in proposed stage, it's not been implemented, therefore there's no violation, correct?
Well, you can't follow what you're talking about, I guess.
No, there's no breach.
I'm surprised that you bring us a budget that violates an ordinance.
No.
Because
No, there's,
proposing a budget that isn't.
you haven't adopted it yet, Nick. You haven't adopted it.
But you're proposing it,
That's a job, is to
Sylvia.
bring us a budget that is something we can
Nick,
work on.
your job is to bring a budget that's reasonable, so I'm talking about the elephant in the room, which is we have a really large PD budget, and we need to
Can
be
we
reasonable.
just talk about that for a second? It's 2019. We have coasted along for 50 years in this town with a half-assed police department. You can't do that anymore. You have to have a real professional police department, or you can't have police. There's really no middle ground
No,
anymore.
I
And so
agree.
I'm
I'm
not
not-
even interested in having this conversation
We've also
about.
already had this conversation very recently when we talked about the Kel-Tec stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
we had this debate, and we voted on it, and I don't know, I mean, we spend so much time listening to you talk about the same thing over and over.
Yeah, and
Just really.
but there are other ways of dealing with the police for a village as small as ours when we are in Block 4. And there are 21-8 agreements that we have put in place with other departments within our city, including the fire department and the library and a few other things that are very successful.
I mean, the library.
And so it's
community costs us
possible,
$50,000
it is,
a year.
pardon me,
The
so
libra-
it's, pardon me, so it's possible to work out agreements whereby maybe the office would be over here, the west side office for the PD would be over here, that it would be half-staffed.
Do you have an actual proposal from the Iowa City Police Department?
I'm
mean,
going
because
to-
these like
I'm-
hypotheticals of
If you would
maybe.
stop talking over me, Virginia, I'd answer you. I am getting permission from the council to go talk with Jody,
I can
and
answer that question. I've had that conversation. They're not interested.
they are. I've
They're
talked
not.
to them.
I just talked to Jody within the last month at the Chiefs meeting.
So have
Not
I.
something that they're interested in.
They are.
No,
Okay.
they're not.
So,
We're- have the debate
And
on it.
we're not, so.
oh, really?
Well,
Don't see
Well-
this as a debate as to whether we're gonna not
I-
have a police
yeah,
station.
we need to decide.
I think
On
we
budget.
need to respect the differences of opinions. It's the differences of opinions that enriches the body of knowledge of this council. And I think we need to focus on the issues and not get personal and start attacking and interrupting. So if we could get some decorum back in order, I say let's do it, because I'd really like to finish this budget tonight.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to get something out to the public to know what it is. So my comment is, and this is just a trend graph, like I said, I'm interested in watching where we're going. And I'm watching clearly that we keep, our PD budget is increasing. And I'd rather see a small budget, a small police force that's well-equipped, well-supported, and with the technology that they need. However, having said that, I also need to see a city who is repairing at least some very basic items, like you heard tonight, potholes, asphalt tarring. We need to bring in some resources to take care of other areas that are falling apart. So I don't see it as a point that anybody wants to shut down the police. I don't see it at all. As a matter of fact, what I hear is that nobody wants to access information and do comparison and do the heavy homework that I have been putting into this budget. It's a lot of homework, and so I'm going to motion that we at least become educated as counselors before March the 12th when we meet again. And I'm going to motion along the lines that Dottie said. Because we have, ready for the motion, Chris? Because we have a number of existing 28E agreements with Iowa City, and because the rate of the increase in the police department's budget since 2011 as adjusted for inflation is concerning, University Heights shall reach out to Iowa City and Johnson County police departments to inquire about possible services. I just want to know, that's it. I just want to know, just collect information. We don't have to vote. We don't have to know anything else other than we asked, we confirmed, and we verified. That's all.
So
Trust
that's your
and
motion.
verified. That's my motion.
Okay.
Well, I might also add that I think that.
Need a second.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, now discussion. Now you can discuss.
I think also, Josiah, that you said that when I said, there have been other 28E agreements, there have been with University Heights and Iowa City. Wasn't there something that we also explored with the streets project or something with Iowa City, and they weren't interested in the cost?
That's the question I asked you, Josiah. She's asking you about potholes. I asked if we could reach out to Iowa City to see their interest for fixing potholes. Economies of scale.
Yeah, I think my comment was we could, if you want to. My only point was working with streets departments in other towns and talking to them. They've got a list of things this long, and they can't even keep up with their own communities. So I just offered that up as we can certainly ask them, but they're not going to do it for free, for sure.
No.
Yeah, they're not gonna lose extra on the deal.
It might cost us more eventually.
I think we're really getting far away from the agenda by having this discussion, but I'll address that up there. You point out in your own chart, we've had spikes because of new equipment purchases. We do not have the economies of scale, and we've realized we don't, to do some of those things, like buying our own stuff at that rate. And that's the debate we've already had about Kel-Tec. And so the idea with Kel-Tec is we pay them a set fee. It basically gets us what we need so that we can run, a police department. And so it is more of a smoother trend now because we're not going to be buying things and trying to sell things. And so I would ask, if we need to vote on this, we can vote on it. But
Well,
I
wanted to ask you.
You're interrupting me, and you're just criticizing for interrupting. I just think that it's again where we get distracted in these meetings and just take so much time talking about things when there's just really not the interest, or we've already talked about it. So that's my position. I hope we do not waste more time. Let's look at what we need to cut, and I don't think we should have a debate right now about whether to get rid of the police department.
That wasn't my
That's not
motion.
the question.
Okay, but we've had the discussion about Kel-Tec, and that was voted on. So I don't know what this debate is really about and why we're doing it right now.
Well, obviously, I'm going to point out one thing that I don't mean it to come across as offensive to anyone, but it looks to me like there's already been discussions and deliberations of this budget outside of the meeting. I haven't had discussions or deliberations with other folks. I'm just bringing fresh ideas to the table now. And
I
all
don't
I'm
know what
asking
you're
is,
talking
can
about,
we
Sylvia.
please get Caltech to reconsider or defer 2 of those vehicles for some future date? I'm just saying defer. I'm not saying
They told us at
cut.
the meeting it wouldn't cost us less.
We're doing the
They went
budget
into
now.
great detail explaining the difference between 3, 4, and 5, and I thought everyone understood it. We're getting the best deal that we can get.
It's still costing a significant amount in that budget.
It'll
The
cost.
deliberation that you're picking up on is from previous council meetings because we've already discussed
We're
this.
doing the budget now, and that's mattering. That's the,
Okay.
it's the, what
Can
is
we
it?
all agree that we need to take out
The
those
wheels are
2
hitting the
capital
pavement.
projects?
Well, we need to vote on
There's a
this
motion,
28E agreement
Okay.
of contacting
Yeah.
the city of Iowa City. That motion's on the table.
And Johnson
So let's
County.
vote.
See if there's-
And Johnson
Because I
County.
just
Does
want to know,
does
you know,
that
I'm
motion
not
include
asking
the
that
words
this,
we don't need to
I'm not
vote on
asking that
this?
this city council eliminate anything. I just need to be
We don't know
informed
what it was.
about what our combinations or possibilities are. Maybe they're worse. And if they are, we should be informed by March.
Well, I would be very happy to volunteer to go talk with them without any bias, because the police have been a part of my community family since I was in the county attorney's office in the 1980s.
I don't
and-
care who gets the information.
Well,
I just want to be
just
informed.
stop, so that it's easy for me to talk with them, to not annoy them, to just investigate for information. And maybe it's not the police that has it. Maybe it's someone else within the administration at the city that would know about this kind of, 28E. So
That is fine.
Is there any further discussion about
Dottie
that?
can go ahead and do that. She does not need council permission to do so.
I think that's, I still want a motion.
Well, it's on the table, the motion and the second.
Okay, good. So I'm ready for a vote.
Is
Can you read the
is
motion
everybody
back,
else
please?
ready?
No.
Any more discussion?
You want me to read the motion? What I have is to explore 28E agreements with Iowa City and the county.
And then
Or, no, but I think we need, that's not,
Don't need to
yeah, well,
redo this.
Well, Sylvia, if you want the entire
Can do it as much
phrasing
as
that you
you want.
use, then you need to give it to me, or I need to listen to the tape, because there's no way I can write that entire thing down
No, no,
in one fell swoop.
absolutely, no, but I just want to qualify what the 28AE agreement would be for. It's for police department services, not just the broad
police department, what?
For
Services.
Police department services.
Services, I see.
yeah, it's broad. It's broad.
Right.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just want to say we would not get the level of service that we are getting now. And
We don't know that.
I think we do. I think
Nothing is-
anybody that has lived on the west side of Iowa City knows that.
Nothing is certain.
Okay, is council's ready to vote? All in favor of looking into the 28E with the police, with the Iowa City Police in Johnson County, and
For police department services.
for police department services? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, so there's 3 yeses and 2 nos, so proceed. And Dottie has volunteered
Okay,
to.
yeah. And I'll go explore with whomever I need to find out what is, and coordinate with Nate. But I see them all the time at Crime Stoppers. and-
Well, we need to get back to the budget,
Okay.
and we need to make 565,000 in cuts here.
I am going to remove the following, that one, this one,
Will you read them off, because I can't see that.
I'm sorry, I just deleted them, Dottie. It's the deferral of the
Police officers.
officer, the 5th police officer, and then deferral of having only 3 patrol cars now and deferring 2 into the future. That came off. I had proposed that we
Can
make
you
sure
please
that in this
add-
fiscal budget, we use the TIF set aside. I don't know what you guys want to think about that.
Is that not already
What?
included in here, though? I mean, I'm just a little worried that you're like counting something twice.
I'm just worried that last time I tried to access the dollars from that line item, Steve did a wonderful job saying, no, you can't access it to pay for the budget. gap
Okay.
that we had then. So I want.
So Steve, though that is shown on page 5,
Would you mind undoing what you just deleted so I can get amounts?
I don't even know what she's doing. Why is she deleting stuff?
page 5, the second item down, streets and sidewalks set aside 5% of TIF, $28,518. Is that not already counted as income going into the general fund in this budget? Or does that come out somewhere later? Because Sylvia's saying we need to add that into the general budget, and I'm thinking it's already in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just take the revenue and
Okay.
split those up by those percents, 5 and 95.
So we keep
Oh, you
talking
gotta
about
have the
a TIF
microphone.
set aside, and as I understand it, that's not the correct terminology. Can Steve?
So I'm not sure what that refers to. I assume it's the 5%, Steve, when you said the 95 and the 5. And the 5%, of course, can only be allocated to.
That was my last knowledge of what it was.
Okay. So that 5%, the council amended the urban renewal plan to include additional parts of the city aside from just OUP.
Yeah,
Yes.
because this is streets. This is.
Yeah,
Isn't
but so what the council did was it incorporated Melrose Avenue and the panel replacement and the streetscape in the future, and Olive Court has expenses for which that 28,000 can stand for. So that 28,000, if that's the right amount, but that 5% doesn't just come into the city and can be used for any purpose. It's only for the purposes that are specified in the amended urban renewal plan. So.
So,
Anyway.
Sylvia, you're saying we subtract the 329, the 176, right? So that totals 505.
Yeah, so
So that takes care. You're
taking those two out.
You're taking.
And then you're taking those two out.
And then if there's still a question on the 28 that legal can't answer, then I'll take that out.
Yeah, that has to come out.
If there's $1,000 of deferred city hall improvements, we can take those out. But you see over there in the green, you're in the red for 59.
Well, I think we need some money in there.
I don't disagree. I'm just letting you know that if I remove it now, watch that 59 is going to go away.
Well, I think there's other areas that.
I agree with you. So now our deficit
Oh,
is at 6.
why are you taking it out?
So can we defer the Sunset Highland ADA transition?
What amount is that for?
46,000.
And what's
The ADA?
No, we can't. We can't defer ADA anymore. We have citizens in the city that certainly need ADA, and we can't bill ourselves as a city if we don't manage our ADA.
I tend to agree with Dottie. We have walkability. We have people with the MS, multiple sclerosis, wheelchairs. We have elderly, and we have a lot of people that walk at night. And I think the safer those ramps are, I think the better off we are. I think we can find 46,000 somewhere else.
Well, good luck.
So what do you suggest? The Sunset and Melrose Street panels?
I'm going to leave
Could I
at
ask a question about
17
that
and
before you
20.
just break- Josiah, so is this is where some of these are just not lined up properly. There's still a ramp there. They're just not, because of the water intake, they're just off from where they're supposed to be. Is that right?
The part of it, there are ramps there. They're not the right. They're too steep down and sideways, so they're not ADA compliant. In this case, the intake is literally in the ramp, so
You need to look at.
so some of the
I know what you're saying.
the cost is high, but part of it's you got to rebuild the street there. You got to move the intake somewhere. You got to move the pipe. You got to regrade because everything's so tight into the street that there's no room to make it flat enough in the right dimensions. So It is more, I just want to point out, it's more than like taking the ramp out and putting it back.
Oh,
It,
yeah.
you know, it touches a lot of things in there.
Do you see the potential that we might be able to do these projects at a lower cost in association with other projects that are foreseeable in the near future? Or do you think we will always need to do these kind of in isolation at approximately the cost that we're talking about here?
Well, that's a kind of a vague question. I mean, potentially, yes. None of the projects that are listed here are like, you know, rebuild Sunset Street, for example. So that's not been identified anywhere. But
So it would be a
so it could be,
Sunset rebuild, or it'd be a street that's coming up the Sunset, basically.
yeah, or you address them like this individually to knock them out.
I think we've postponed. We've just kicked the ball down the lane too long, and I saw this summer when I was out and about a person that was trying to navigate a walker and could not turn on that terrible turn corner. And fell over because of the decline or incline or whatever of the ramp. I think this is ridiculous. I think it's clearly a priority. If you're going to take out the streets, my God, you know, what have you got left?
Well, this is why the previous council voted to build a hotel, but we don't have a hotel this
A hotel is
So
critical.
We have to put these things off for
It adds
one or
a
two
little
more years
dignity to our village.
until that thing is done.
Well, you know, I think let's just be happy that we have a hotel coming, because if the hotel wasn't here, we'd be locked down on the TIF, which is 500 and some thousand going out, and that's for the next several years, more than 5 years. So I think we need to be reasonable and just look at what we have, hard choices. My neighborhood is personally impacted. I'm personally impacted, but I'm looking at the citywide, global good. I don't even know what to say anymore. So somebody else propose another cut. Lisa, I haven't heard you propose one. Would you mind?
Well, I said, how about the Melrose and Sunset panels? Come on, Josiah, let's look at the streets budget again.
We're gutting.
I don't know. We have to look there. That's what we historically do.
Yes,
We
this
look
is what
there.
we usually
I don't
do.
know that we.
Historically,
I
we
think
haven't had
we've
a
done
hotel.
a lot with
mean,
the
We don't have a hotel
ADA
yet.
ramps. We've done a lot.
How many ADA ramps have we installed in the past 5 years? Because it's quite a few. Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe it's probably 15,
Thank you.
I would say.
That's a significant number to me.
I mean, I notice a difference. So I think this one can wait for 1 year.
And let's
But
start looking at using the hotel revenue for these kind of things instead of talking about what's been termed frivolous projects.
I mean, do I need to make a motion for us to move on this?
So you're saying put in 46,000 to take out, and then if we did that, I mean, I think
Hold
a
on,
motion
Virginia.
should be made for the whole
Because if you
thing.
remove 46,000, we still have a gap of 14.
Well, it's getting closer.
So
Well,
what
there's
are you
18
removing? What's the
there.
46?
That's the ADA transition Sunset Highland.
So are we putting it back on the sidewalk or
It's on the
drive?
buffer block.
What?
We don't care about the walkability because it's going off. Transition.
Sylvia, what did
It's
you
going to
say?
be a delay. You don't care about Oak Crest or Highland either. I mean, we can say that.
I
Do
don't
you-
care about anything.
Sylvia, do you have another project that you're wanting to cut ahead of the ADA transition sidewalk?
Yeah, but it's going to be diving for change. I mean, 46,000, that's a really nice big chunk to get rid of, but we've got salary increases. I think that one person who really, really needs a salary increase is our school crossing guard. I understand that he hasn't had a salary increase for over 5 years. I think that's really important. If we were to cut down, if we were
Probably
to
7
defer
years.
the salary increases, that's 2,500. But as you're seeing, Nick, this is a terrible position to be in. I have to come up with
Of course it is.
10 2000s. Actually, not even twice. Yeah, it's just.
That's what
this is the
you're
budget
elected for, to
that-
make terrible decisions, to make, hard tough decisions.
So let me ask, Nate, how I'd rather have a fifth car parked in the city at Marietta's parking spaces. How much do we save if we defer one police officer? How much do we defer
We've
by one
already
police
How much do we pay in overtime?
discussed
if we have
lot.
a police
Kel-Tec.
officer?
Yeah, if you defer to only have 4, then it largely depends on what you pay in overtime and other wages to cover those hours, or you make the decision that you're no longer going to be 24 hours and there's just be hours where there's nobody available to respond.
Well, we
to
just
that.
started being 24 hours on January 1 of this year.
Then we're at
Historically, we haven't
17.
been.
What did
So
she say?
can we
14.
be
We're only
reasonable
at
here?
14.
We've been 24 hours in one form or
And
another
somewhere I
since
figured
at least
out
2012 when
14.
I was
I can't
here
remember
previous.
How much crime do we have on that night shift?
That depends on the night. I mean, that you can ask that of any department. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure that's a fair question.
Josiah, where is there anything for the 14,000?
The remaining
That-
items were the Highland Drive east side asphalt maintenance. That was
Oh,
estimated at-
the cracking
Okay.
ceiling.
Here's another.
That was 18,000,
Correct.
correct? Okay, so possibly,
My hat as a finance person.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you against bonding for these 2 street projects? We have revenue streams coming in soon of additional property tax, hotel-motel tax, that can start to make the payments, excuse me, and reduce the principal that is borrowed. If I'm hearing that streets are important, I don't disagree, but you have bonding capacity. We have a, I would say, stellar bonding rating. Why is that not being discussed?
As a resident who pays taxes, it's
I do as well.
It's taxing.
I'm a citizen too.
As a tax increase, and number two, it's really super important to understand. You just can't, overexpend. The property taxes for the hotel are not coming yet.
Sylvia, I'm
the
very
hotel
well
is a-
aware, but you have that option on the table and you seem to be discounting it. Why?
Because we need to live within our means.
And we
As a
have
city.
we have
We need to
additional
make-
revenue streams coming in a year.
In a year's time, not this fiscal year, though. Only
so
half
some of
that
these
fiscal
projects
year.
will be deferred to next year.
Again,
1 year.
and again, and again.
Right.
How long have some of these been deferred? And the potholes, I mean,
I've not seen these Oak Crest and Highland projects before.
I hear
This is the first
all-
year I've heard
yeah,
of them.
I hear
Maybe
by
they
them,
were there in
Louise?
15.
they were
when I
there and they
wasn't here.
weren't brought forth. I hear all the time about what a rubble heap we're living in, and when they have axle problems with their car from driving down a U Heights street, I think we have problems.
What if we just bond for the ADA and the ceiling? I mean, that's 46 plus 18.
I'd rather see us use our cash from lost to pay for the 46 ADA transition sidewalk, if that's what you guys want to go. But I don't want to see any more new debt. We don't need any more new debt. Let's use what we have and be fiscally prudent about it. I'm not saying be outrageous, and I'm not saying be a miser. I'm just saying let's be reasonable.
Well, how much are we bonding for now? It's minuscule because
Well, that's
of how we cut it back.
that's a discussion to have in the future.
Well, but it's on the
Because whether you use the 250,000 from Olive Court like you recommended or not, that's when we go through the bonding process. I think that's a decision then,
Yeah.
not now.
Okay.
Well, we need to have a discussion. That's healthy to do it now. It's part of our budget package. What are preliminary thoughts of keeping the 250,000 of the Olive Court houses
On Olive.
on Olive Court
Yeah.
for all the reconstruction that's planned? Personally, I think that's consistent with supporting that neighborhood. It's a no-brainer. What do you think, Nick? And we can do a round robin.
But we could still.
Well, the council really hasn't.
isn't grade
It wasn't on the
school,
agenda
Sylvia.
for discussion. I think you're being unfair to ask the
Part of
council their opinion right now. I'm sure they want to think about it. Whether you want to use that money for that, I don't think we need to discuss that now. I
don't
think
have
we
an
need
answer for that tonight. I need
to
think
get
about it more.
to the budget, get through the budget and our numbers, and then.
But we could bond for that if we use that money on Olive where it should be stay. We could still bond for a small amount for the street projects. I mean, I don't think that's, if we're going to be, I guess, I keep coming back to the point, this is what cities do, I mean, we don't have any high rises, we don't have any big deals like Mark Mullen or anybody in Iowa City, but I mean, I think the hotel is very practical, and it will serve the university hospital as well, which is nothing but a win-win for us and for them. And it indicates that we're good neighbors. I think that was a very positive thing. But I think we need to improve the infrastructure. And if that means bite the bullet and borrow some more money.
So you're suggesting we leave a higher amount, and then we figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to finance it in the next few months.
Well, just so the Olive money definitely belongs
bonding,
on Olive.
By Olive money, by lost money.
So could we say we're allocating $64,000 from the Olive Court houses?
No, it belongs. See, my idea, and maybe it's.
Let me finish. You didn't like to be interrupted. Let me just finish my point. So, if we reallocated the $64,000 from the Olive Court houses to be used on Olive Court, to free up $64,000, that would allow us to cover the ADA and the ceiling. I mean, is there a problem with that?
My
Look
to the
for
rest?
kind of a middle.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying if we're trying to just get this done, I'm just trying to find.
Well, I think down the road, I think the Olive Court money should stay on Olive Court. If we are wanting to make that a premier entree to our city and the street there and fix those houses, the way you do that is to introduce it to other people who want to purchase on the street. And the way we're improving that with Josiah's direction here is excellent. It's really superb. So the money needs to stay there.
That was never the intent when this was.
I don't care what the intent was. It's a reasonable solution.
Well, how about, it sounds like some of the council wants to take the 46 and the 18, which you say adds up to 64,000, and then we'll figure out in the next few months whether it's Olive Court, whether it's lost, whether it's bonding. We'll figure it out then, right? And everybody will think about it and discuss it. If that's agreeable to people, we put, because we can't raise it after we set the budget, we can only lower it. And so, is that what people are considering?
Can wait, but I don't want to get rid of the Highland crack ceiling.
Okay, so we're back at 60,000.
We're back at 60,000.
Right.
And we'll figure out how we're going to cover that.
Yeah, we have to right now.
Are we?
I mean, councils consider that. And then I still want to go through some of these budget numbers.
This is why I said we need to have another meeting by the end of the week in February.
No.
Right now, we're
keep
spending the
going.
time of the city attorney at $200 an hour on budget issues. I don't see, can we postpone?
Well-
Can we table the budget discussion and go to anything else that might require legal? Can I ask you to table the resolution you introduced for next month? So that all we do is we just do city budget and the warrants, the treasury report.
We can get through this, Sylvia. We can get through this. Sylvia, you had December, January. We all had that to go through some of this too.
Right.
And we didn't.
Oh,
Right.
So we have February. And I know you were working on it, but
Everybody was working on it, including you, because you gave me information.
If we could just move ahead, then maybe we could get through it.
and so let's start going through some of the budget numbers, because I know council put in numbers in their areas. And do some of you want to go over those areas? I mean, we should start on, well, first it's revenue at the beginning, but he has transit in there. I mean, who wants to go through this? Library levy, we already went through that. Let me see, this is page 1.
So-
I got my numbers wrong. So where are some of the items that we need to discuss tonight?
The lack of respect given to other council members, I can't stand every time Ms. Quezada speaks up, she's.
I'm sorry, could you come and speak in the microphone? You wanted to speak and state your name and...
I wasn't ready to speak yet, but she turned and asked if we had any ideas, and it makes me very upset to see council members showing such a lack of lack of respect for her ideas when she's got our best interest at heart. I'm a resident here. I've been very frustrated with this council. Lost money because of this council, but seeing it in person has made me even more upset, because every time she tries to say something, anytime Dottie tries to say something, there's a quip from someone before they're even done speaking, and that's just abysmal in my mind, especially when she's speaking clearly and isn't being offensive to anyone. And I'm not going to get hung up on it, and I have nothing to say about the police. That's not why I'm here. But it drives me crazy sitting back there watching fifth grade dynamics run this meeting. It's ridiculous. You're all older than me. Why am I recognizing this? It's ridiculous. Show respect to the people that are speaking.
Did you state your name?
My name is John Irvine.
And your address?
6 Lemur Court.
Thank you, John. I knew your mother, Jerry.
Yes, she was a lovely woman.
Yeah.
Thank you. But she passed away from cancer. I had the option to take over the house and pay the mortgage and all of that. I decided to, with the belief that this city was going places, and since I've decided to move there, it has been very bad. The dynamic, the decisions being made don't seem to be with the public's interest at heart. I'm curious where the research has been. Well, I'm sure there is, because I don't think that you guys are like ineffective in your roles, but as a group, I'm shocked. I guess it doesn't really surprise me, because I haven't agreed with any of the decisions this council has made. But at the same time, when she's speaking, or when Mr. Herbold is speaking, the same consideration and respect should be given to both of them, not one over the other. That's just ridiculous. And the reason why I came here tonight was to try to explain that I made a large investment in my home, putting money into this community to try to improve my home, with the intent of living here for quite a while, but also with the option of renting it someday. And after those improvements were made, this council decided that no new rental permits would be granted. And I've sunk about $70,000 into that home, and I have a few questions. One, what research was done to support capping the rental permits, other than saying that Iowa City did it, so we're going to do it too? Two, what would you do in my position? And I know that you don't have to answer that right now. I'm just posing that hypothetical, or rather rhetorical, because I'm at a loss, and I don't see the evidence that supports those decisions. The biggest house in the neighborhood with the biggest lot that faces Kinnick Stadium hasn't sold for a reason. It has no rental permit, and that's, of course, anecdotal in my opinion, but if you look at the other homes that have sold in record time for some very similar prices, they had rental permits attached to them. That's all I need to say, and I had no intention of commenting on the dynamic of the council, and I apologize if I come off as rude, but it's because I see people being rude that I needed to say something. It's abysmal. They're just stating their opinions, and from what I'm seeing and hearing, they're not far off from being on the right path, but yet council members can't remain silent while they're speaking, and that's counterproductive.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thanks.
Sylvia, are you going to lead us through the...
I'm waiting for the council to provide the next instruction. We're now down to minus 60,000.
Well, I know,
on
but
the
if we
side-
go through,
And-
I want to make sure council goes through their projects that they want in their list. And maybe some of those can be reduced, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, we go down to capital projects, which Josiah went over. This is on page 2. Then we go to public safety, the crossing guard, and yes, he hasn't had a raise in 7 years. And so that's reflected in there, a raise with the new fiscal year. And then IPERS and employees, that's already set. And then we go to page 3, and the police, and we've been over the police budget. They went over it in December and January.
I had a couple of questions that were not, I think the council was not privy to an email exchange between me, Nick, and the police chief. Perhaps we can revisit a few of them. It's chum change, but if that's what we're looking at now, I think we need to bring them up to round out the conversation. We have an evidence locker that is worth $1,200. The current University City Hall has a dual function area for locker room and evidence room storage. If we eliminate the off-site storage, we can consolidate and reduce this deficit by $1,200. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, it would be $1,200.
Nate, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so going back to prior meetings, and I guess to kind of fill the council in where this came from, Sylvia had come to me and asked if that was what Ken Stanley, when the design of this building was done, if that's what he had proposed. And his proposal at the prior meeting was for the office that the AV equipment is in, and Chris Anderson's office where your mailboxes are, that he wanted to extend that locker room area basically to everything except for that AV corner and make that an evidence area. Obviously, that did not happen because the city needs that space to store the things that are back there. So the locker room area was reduced to the size that it is. The lockers were purchased for the officers to keep equipment in, and that room has lockers on one side and the storage shelves on the other. And if you put evidence lockers in there, you have to fit them in about a 9 square foot area. It's about a 3x3 area that you could put lockers that would actually allow for movement and for the doors of the equipment lockers to actually open fully. So that's just not, and there's tires, the police bikes are stored in that garage. It's not just for evidence. There's several things that are stored down there.
A couple of clarifications. I did not meet to ask for what the use or security level of the building was. I was part of the 1 UOP construction phase, so I'm well aware that we use cinder block, and we reinforced it from certain areas to make sure that drill-ins wouldn't happen. Number 2, the type of additional things that you have in terms of bikes, some of those are abandoned property bikes dating back to 2017. I was wondering if we could get rid of them, we'd free up space. We have approximately 9 to 10 tires from vehicles from the Ron Fort era that are still there. And we have a discombobulated evidence, a second evidence shelf. The one that seems to be most usable is about 5 feet wide and maybe 18 inches deep. I didn't think it would be unreasonable to reconfigure the 1 University Place City Hall area, give you some new rooms behind these areas over here for space, for storage space, for paper or something that is not high security, and consolidate. We save $1,200, and that brings down the budget by $258,800.
And again, that's just 2 of those bikes are the police bikes. I'm not sure where you're going to store those. This winter, we still, up until December, since the weather was nice, and the hope was it was going to be that way all winter. Obviously, it wasn't, but the hope was to use the speed trailer throughout the winter season. Obviously, I said we can't do that when the snowplows are going by. So it sat up here, but next winter I have every intention of storing that inside when the weather is like this, because it's just better for the equipment we spent that money on, and I don't really want it to sit outside when it doesn't need to. So
So Nate, you're saying we need that $1,200?
Yeah, I mean that space. We reduced it a couple years ago. We had 2 garage spaces. We reduced it to 1, and all that. Those items that were in 2 are now in 1. So that's the space that we get is well worth the money.
So is that the only place you keep a car then? Or you don't keep a police car in there?
Yeah, because the distance from here to there, the cars aren't stored there anymore. They're here at the office because, like I said, it's a ways to get down there.
So where is this one? Is this over in Paul Moore's garage?
No,
No, this is down off Woodside Drive.
behind the new hotel.
Yeah, down behind the new hotel.
Oh, so what's in his garage? Anything?
I believe the city
City
has
signs,
signage and
cones.
stuff like stuff for road repairs that.
Can't we consolidate that? I mean, there's not any evidence to speak of.
I don't know where you're going to put the evidence because there's.
Well, what is the evidence? Because you
there's-
don't do a lot of court work.
I'm not going to go into details of what it is, but I'm just going to tell you that it's not something that you're going to find space for here.
It fits in those shelves, though, right? Correct?
Okay.
The evidence is inside the shelves?
So does council want to keep this on or
If Nate thinks
Can we look
could,
at
yes.
page 5 for a second?
page 5?
I just noticed that we have $10,000 allocated to the Johnson County Mental Access Facility. I know we talked about a $5,000 contribution at one point. We certainly didn't talk about a $10,000 contribution, and I don't think that's appropriate.
That was a suggestion by Louise, but I do want to give you some history. The 5,000 is already approved in this current fiscal year.
So
Well,
this
you know,
doesn't
we
need
have
to
wish
be-
lists, and I put 5,000 on it. I didn't put 10,000.
Okay,
I
well-
placed 5,000, and it was a wish list.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I would like to give to them if we can.
So what is the direction?
I think we only need one.
And that's an agenda item too.
okay.
No, it's a separate one. There's,
I don't know why there's 10 listed there.
I think that's what you requested. And it
I
got
said
added.
5.
We can go back and look at your email, but I'll
Well,
make
I
your word
do we
correct.
have?
I'm saying 5 right now, so why don't you count
Sure.
that? I mean, I know I said 5,000. Why can't you just believe me?
Let's go ahead and cut that, please.
Out completely, 100 or 50%?
I mean, did we
it's a
not
council-
already allocate 5,000 from the
We're
current
paying
year's
this
budget?
year, yes.
So
Tonight
we
we're
don't
gonna-
need any of this, right?
Right.
Okay. Can we also defer the additional streetlights for $2,500?
No, the street. Did you say streetlights? It's very, very cheap. The Mid America puts them on free, and all we do is get billed for the extra electric, which
I
is
mean, free or $2,500?
how much does Mid America cost for put the lights on?
Well, it's down for 2,500.
So, like you said, that was, I think, 6 lights, and I think they're, let's see if I can work that, so much per month, a flat
Yeah,
rate
but
for the lights,
six
times 6
lights.
times 12 months.
Yeah, but I'm
And
not.
that's the 2,500?
Again,
Well-
I know it's something we need to be working on, but
Historically,
necessarily
too, past councils, you can do whatever you want, this council, but past councils has talked to people on the street and see if they want an extra light.
right, because I have a feeling that people want a light on somebody else's property, but when it actually goes up on their own,
But
they're not going to be too happy
not
about
on
it.
anybody's
And I agree,
property.
they want a lower light too, like a pedestrian, so it doesn't,
It's not. It's
I'm
a
just
city light.
saying
It's
that's
not
what
on anybody's
councils have
property.
done.
It's between the sidewalk and the street.
Yeah, people consider that their property.
Well,
generally.
it's not, and
Well, it shines in there.
it's safety.
So-
It's a safety thing. As many young women as we have walking in University Heights, I'm surprised we haven't had something more violent.
Dottie,
It's
I
not-
think you're getting a good deal with 46,000 on the ADA and 18,000 on the asphalt tarring.
Well, but this is minuscule. This is
Look, 48,000 is minuscule. We need to close it.
Let's see how much this is, because I know that.
So,
You have the answer now?
Yes, he
Yeah.
does.
so one of those lights was to add a light pole at Monroe, because currently that one, like all the blocks there have ones at the corners and one in the middle, and that one's missing one for some reason.
So you mean add a pole?
So the pole is,
it's the pole.
and the wiring is like 1,500.
Okay, so if we just replace the lights on the poles that are available without adding any.
So I think that was 5 times 10 times 12 months. So that's like an additional 600 or so
That's all.
In-
And then the electric bill,
electric bill.
which is
Because they charge you a flat rate
for the whole city,
for each light.
for each light. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
have
it goes
another
from 2,500 to 600?
Yeah,
If
for
you
the lights.
if you're
we
just
don't put
if you're
the
just adding those 5 lights and you're not adding a pole to the mid block
Seems
and the
like an
wiring.
acceptable step to take for this year.
I also found another 1,000, but we need some explanation to it, and that is coming from page 6, commodities and technology, minor equipment. What is that $1,550 for?
Technology.
So Sylvia, can you add 1,900 to this
Microphones.
list for the light pole, please?
What's the line item name?
Oh, yeah, that's, Chris discussed that with. me
Additional
about
street light.
Traffic
minor
light
equipment.
and supplies.
Additional light pole.
That's to look into better microphones.
Okay, I think we need to defer it, just like we're deferring other critical. This seems like a low priority. We're surviving with these, are not good, but we're surviving.
What is this one? I'm sorry.
It's $1,550 for microphones.
You want to come up here, Pat, and talk? Pat wants to make a comment.
The microphone system is not good. And so many times we're sitting out here, we can't hear anything. I don't know if it's, I've never known of a microphone system where you have to put your mouth right up there for everybody to hear you.
So I would recommend that we defer, unfortunately, 1550. Is there consensus? If we do the deferral, we're down to 45,350.
Well, there's so many complaints about the
Strong public
sound.
input on that one saying don't defer it.
Yeah, so no.
That's 2. Nick, where do you
Do
stand?
you want to, Nick, defer that microphones, or?
I would listen to what, I think Chris is kind of running the show on the microphones. If she thinks we need them, I would listen to that suggestion.
Dottie,
what's
what do
your-
you think of the microphones?
I think they suck, but I don't know if this is the year to replace
Well, I
them.
can hear you now, Dot. Don't mince words.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think the consensus is they want to keep the microphones on
So-
the.
We're pretty close here. I mean, I want to say that ADA transition still needs to get deferred.
Yeah.
And we did add in the correct mayor's salary, I assume.
Did we?
Anything that is not getting pulled out from this is restored to whatever what came in originally.
Well,
'Cause it's-
nobody said that yet,
Well-
so
Well, do we
I don't
need
think
to
you can assume
increase
that.
So do we need to reflect an increase of the mayor's salary to the?
Yeah, we can do that, yeah. And also, everybody needs to look at their line items and see if they're comfortable with them. I know Virginia asked for 5,000 or 2,000?
No, I asked for 2,000 for mowing.
For mowing, and I said, let's go for 50.
I assume that you read my report. The lowest
I responded to you. Was
the lowest bid I've gotten so far is for
700 and something.
$1,500. So I don't think we're going to be able to do it for 1,000. I mean, I was thinking maybe we could just try to see if somebody in the neighborhood wants to do it for lower than a lawn service is going to charge.
Okay.
So that's our only hope to stay within budget there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Okay. Let's hope we have
So
something
you
here.
we can either increase that to 1,500 if we want it done for sure, or you can leave it hanging in the air.
Let's get this ADA settled first. Do you guys want it, yes or no? Because if we
No.
are, we have 900 to close.
No.
So we're going to 1,500. Is that what you're recommending?
We haven't settled that yet, I don't think.
Okay.
We have 900 to close.
So let's see. She has it down to 900. So she has 46. The additional street light, 1,900. Johnson County Mental Health, 10,000. Evidence locker. Did you want the evidence locker? I thought.
I
think that needs to
I
come
thought.
off
I
of the
thought that
list.
was.
Nate.
I'm not sure that's there.
There you go. We need 2,100 to close.
Okay. So, Josiah, that's correct, the 1,900 off, because then you're counting 600 for the,
25 minus 600.
for the, okay.
That's correct.
I have
Okay, thank you.
I have no information on the income side that from Nick or from Nate as to what they're going to do with the Marriott parking spaces. That's a considerable amount of money. Last time we did not, well, it could close 2,000 if we price it right.
Are you talking about Marietta in front of
Football
Grandview?
holiday season, right?
Yeah.
We
I mean,
could
I
take
would
a
rather
risk
just-
and increase our income by a projected amount, but I
It
don't.
didn't really work last
It
year. I'd
didn't.
prefer to just
$25? No, it did not
revert
work.
back to the old way. Personally,
I think.
I don't know
there's
what-
opportunities to release them earlier and have a lower price. I mean, I was advocating for a
Okay.
lower price last year, but.
Let me ask, okay, we need 2,100. IT support. Nate, explain to me again what is like. Last year we allocated 2,000 and this year we're going up to 3. And that's a 50% increase.
Right. It's not really an increase because before we had technology services and IT, we had two separate line items that were combined into one. It's actually I don't have it. I believe it's $1,000 or $1,500 decrease when you had those two put together, and we still have, we're getting rid of the website that we have and consolidating that again in a cost-saving effort with
That's
just
the
the city website. So we still have a portion that we're gonna have to pay for that. Most of our IT should be covered in our Caltech contract. There is still some of the in-house. We obviously still have to provide our own internet and things like that that they're not going to provide that stuff for us.
And can you tell us more about the media and Verizon, because that's
So that's not an increase because the council, we have spent that every year anyway. That was increased to reflect what's actually been paid. That's just gone over budget every year. So
you're just adjusting to.
yeah, there's
align
been the last 2 or 3 years
with
that it's
actual expenditures.
that it's gone over. So that just now matches that.
Super. Are there any office supplies that need to be, I have some questions on the One University Place charges at $7,500, and it includes cleaning fees. But later on, we also have janitorial or facility services. I want some clarification. Are we doubling on costs there, or what does One University Place provide the city in terms of cleaning services? I'm confused as
They
to.
don't.
So Chris,
OUP doesn't give any cleaning services.
That I'm aware of.
okay, because
And-
the line item says something to the effect of, what is it?
It says
Condo
monthly
fees.
association fleet
Condo fees plus
plus
something else.
estimated maintenance.
Yes, and I want to know what that phrase maintenance.
Yeah, do they do the streets and sidewalks out here? Because it's a mess. They haven't done it
Yeah, they
then.
plow, they shovel, they do all that.
That's
Okay,
the
so that's the
south
maintenance.
fee.
I think that's what that is.
Okay, just wanted
And
clarification.
what were you talking about before that too?
Nothing, I just need clarification on two
Oh.
line items.
I mean, do you want to go over the salaries? I mean, we haven't done that yet.
Well, we need to close 2,100 unless you're proposing not to defer the salaries, because right now, on the table.
You want to defer the salaries?
No, I'm asking you, is that what you're going to? You want to defer salaries? Otherwise, we need to close 2,100. So let's close this deficit and then talk about all the things that are getting restored.
Well, there's 300 for the farmer's market.
And
And
the
why
commu-
is there any, I don't understand why there's a cost to the farmer's market.
Because we were not able to get hot food vendors. And we did provide an incentive for some to show up. They had a setup fee that they got reimbursed for. And not a whole lot of people, very few took us up on that offer, even with an incentive. So we still need some funding to try to attract, and we need advertising. But my point
I
is-
don't necessarily agree with that. If we're going to discuss things.
Yeah. Otherwise, our advertising this year was the big signs were sponsored by a donor. So we could, if you're going to defund that, then we need to defund all arts and culture except for,
Can you speak up a little or get closer to the
yeah,
mic?
Louise, what page are you on?
4. down at the bottom, culture and rec.
Yep. I just, so.
You know, that's where it says,
There's $800 with the, there's 300 community handbook, farmer's market, and arts and recreation. That's 300 altogether, for a total of 8. Farmer's market and car. So if we take that off the table, let's see.
There's 300 for the community handbook, did you say?
No, there's
No, there's, no, misspoke. It's farmer's market,
Okay, okay.
300. The car is 500. So that's 800 coming
those are
off.
that's the
And then we
events
have
committee.
1,000.
That's the community,
300.
community events committee.
So what are you proposing there?
I say we take care of both, eliminate both of them, and we have a budget of 1,300 to close.
Oh, I say we keep the community events committee.
Well, let's talk about that, because the police department has $1,000 worth of community events, and we need to figure out, do we need 1,000 the police portion, or it's more than farmers market and the culture committee put together. So let's talk about that. That's non-critical.
It's actually 1,200 in this budget.
Yeah, so 1,200
for the police events.
Right. So I just want to know, what do we need for National Night Out?
Can we knock that 1,200 down to like 500?
We need about 1,000 for that.
No, you don't.
1,000.
We do need 1,000. I'm telling you what Crime Stoppers in Iowa City and throughout the country contributes.
So the
But
signs
that's not
would
for
be
contribution, though.
roughly. I mean, we could do signs for 100 to 150 because we had overkill last year, and then we could the ice cream.
But they're different from last year.
The
and
ice cream is usually
and we'll print them again.
ish.
So are you saying you can go to 500?
No.
If all we're going to do is National Night Out, then yes. Otherwise, if we plan on doing the other events, whether that's Coffee with a Cop or other things like that, then that just needs to be factored in.
If
Otherwise-
we reduce this budget by only 700, we're down to 1,400.
I can't hear you. What? If we reduce
I'm
it, what?
saying that if we reduce the $1,200
to 700,
you still have 1,400 to clear. I just say
Let's run a bond for $1,400.
I just say go for 1,000, clean it up, and get closer to 400.
I can only report to Crime Stoppers after having been a member and organized the group. And throughout the nation, by the time we buy what we need to buy, and we did not do that last year since Ken left, we need to spend 1,000 on it. We may not spend that much, but we need to have that much available. Because it costs to bring everybody in through the city also. We're contributing
We are
to the
really
cost
close
of the vehicle and the time that we get for Herky. It
We
isn't
are-
all gratis.
We are 2,100 away if we're not
We're taking out farmers market. Is that what we're doing?
And
I'm okay with that.
then we need to allocate. I'm not going to have any money whatsoever to do basic advertising, which is not
What?
covered by donors.
You're not going to what?
To have basic advertising.
Well, I
Dollars.
don't know
I mean,
that
I'm
you
running
get
with-
money when you haven't provided a report since the last farmer's market.
You know what?
You haven't
This
provided
takes
for 2
priority.
farmers markets.
This takes priority. You all have seen the terrible signs that are used, the small ones.
Uh-huh.
They have yellow tape over them. They've been recycled at least for 3 seasons, going on to 4.
Yeah.
And
We need a
farmers market has been run quite efficiently and effectively, but it needs some city support.
we need a better plan.
The plan is it's giving you 15 markets at minimum. 15
That
activities
almost
for the
no
community.
one attended.
No.
Well, you don't attend it, but it would be nice if you did.
I have been there, Sylvia. You haven't.
Oh, I'm always there.
No, you're not always there. I was there when Louise was there for you because you weren't there. So,
Louise and I
Oh.
made private arrangements on that. Thank you.
well, I'm
Louise.
just.
Yeah, so we don't need to decide tonight if there's a farmer's market,
let's
but we
get it
need
done.
to decide what money goes there.
Whatever money we get.
Advertise it on Nextdoor. I think that's perfectly sufficient.
I can give you $500. Not personally,
Oh,
but commodities, technology, I think we are going to be able to get the Google domain a little bit cheaper.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh. So not for farmer's market for your budget.
Okay.
I thought you were talking, you're going to give them 500.
No.
Another private donor.
I personally, I would take a break on the farmer's market until the hotel is built and then maybe revisit, but that's my personal opinion. But I
Okay,
think
so
we can
which
do it
line
500.
are you talking about?
Licensing fees, Google domain under commodities technology.
And what page are you on? Just to help us a little.
6.
Thank you.
I mean, I've supported the farmer's market, but what about the idea of giving it a rest for a while? I don't know. I know there were a lot of efforts
The
last
minor
year.
equipment supplies? No, not that one. Technology.
Licensing.
Oh, up here.
I'd be okay with that, but we're not making that decision.
So you're going to make it 10,000.
No, it's 2,000 minus 500.
Technology's here.
Licensing fees, Google domain.
Oh, okay.
And we hope that works out.
Okay, so that's 1,500. So you took off 500.
Yep, and you're down to 1,600.
And that is, it still includes Crime Stoppers.
Yes,
Okay.
the police is getting 1,500 to plan for, that's what I
What?
have here.
1,200.
Yeah,
1,200.
because
So
there's money in the
What exactly is
budget.
the final budget for that community event for the police? Virginia, do you have any ideas? They have 1,200.
What?
Sorry, what's it called, Louise?
Community Events Committee.
Thank you. Only has 500, and that's for the entire community.
That's right. So I'm asking, do you want to make an adjustment and remove some from the police to offset that deficit right there? The deficit is 1,600 right now. All I'm asking is the police department has 1,200. If you bring it down to match the community resource, whatever, 500, you're saving the city $700. Look what $700 does when it gives us 900 to close.
But that's what Dottie was just talking about
I'm
for.
sorry, rather than like,
national
I
night.
don't understand that. I don't know.
we're talking about like
I'm
less than
lost.
1% of our budget now. Like, do we absolutely need to close this last $1,600?
We should. We have an obligation to close it.
Well, the Crime Stoppers evening with
Where's
the
she getting this 700 from?
I'm
Well,
lost.
it would be from the community.
The
You're
various,
lowering-
the various events for
You're lowering them.
Pizza with the nights.
Yeah.
Pizza.
You're lowering them to 700.
They get 500, just like
Who does?
The police do.
No, we need that much for Crime Stoppers. Otherwise, we're going to have to take it out of the police budget somewhere because we're going to need it. And it is an afternoon in the park with the kids and the ice cream and all the other bells and
that's
whistles.
there. You still get $500 to do that unless you.
It's more important than any other event in the city.
Delete 700.
So can we just have like a group discussion? Do we want to have this mowing thing in, you know, we can save $1,000 if you try to scrounge up volunteers to mow the public areas for another year, but that's
Get
just not really been
volunteers.
very successful. So like, you know,
I
hasn't been
I still
successful,
work
and
with
how do we tell
volunteers if you
people
want me to.
what's
you
the
need
group
to
feel
mow?
It's just that you got to
Are
stay
y'all
on
willing
top
to-
of it because volunteers, I mean, I'd be willing to work with volunteers, but it's really difficult to constantly monitor
Yeah,
it
it's really-
because, you know, they have lives and things come up and they can't do it and they're doing it out of the goodness of their.
I'm trying to offer that if it helps, but I really think it's gonna hurt if we don't. But
Is the farmer's market in or out?
Hey, Stan, you did that before. You volunteered and mowed for us before. You know any mowers?
Volunteer.
Not just you. I mean,
all season, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
yeah, it's the whole season. It is a lot. And because I don't know.
Okay, let's keep it.
Maybe we can hire someone to do it with 1,000, and you could eliminate 1,000.
What's that?
Maybe we can hire someone to do it
That's my hope.
for half. You know, what we have 2,000 in that budget now. Oh, just one. Oh,
Yeah, 1,600. yeah.
okay. We're down to one. Oh, okay. We can't even cover it. So we need to remove it because we don't have anybody that will do it for 1,000.
Not yet.
So
Yeah.
I think it's best then to just remove it.
So how much did you put, Virginia? 1,000?
I mean, I was thinking we had 1,500 in there. And so with the farmer's market, you're leaving it at 300.
That's your choice. I'm leaving it up to this. I think that
I am reticent to put more money into the farmer's market when it doesn't seem to be working very well.
we've run the farmer's market on a 0 city budget. I bet we can do it again. So if you need 300.
I think we take a break and we either cut it down so that we can do
No,
like
we're not
mowing,
taking any breaks because it's really hard to
or we take a
retrain.
break
I say we take
for a year.
Why don't we let the public tell you what they want to do? So
Well, they did that when they didn't show up to the farmer's market, I believe.
you know what?
Well, so Dottie wants a break.
Sylvia, please. You know,
Lisa,
I
what do
wish
I don't know. You're saying you want a break.
I could.
Dottie wants a break.
I want to break from spending
Carelessly with all these signs. They cost about $150 to produce. So if Dottie is suggesting that the community events require re-expending the same amount of money, I'm recycling old farmers market for the farmers market, and I just think it's completely unfair, but it's your decision, not mine. You can defund
You
it.
said, but what?
What?
But what'd you say?
That you could defund.
But what'd you
300.
say, Sylvia?
You have a budget gap of 300. Let's focus on that because we've been on the budget and it's 914.
Take it out of tree board.
So the other 300, the jail processing fees, we only pay that if there's a charge, if we file charges under city code, which are rare. If someone's going to jail, it's where those charges are filed under the state, and we're not billed for jail fees from that. So the only time, if it was a disorderly house charge or something like that someone was actually arrested for, if they're booked into jail and the city the jail charges us for them to be there. Otherwise, we haven't paid that for several years because we don't book on criminal charges under city code. So
what
that's
can
an
you
option.
lower that?
That can go to 0. It's just we just won't charge.
And what do you have it at?
It's 300.
So now we're down to 300.
So
We don't need it because we have a volunteer for 300. We could be on the safe side and just take maybe a
Quarter of your volunteering, Nate?
I mean, yeah, if you want to leave it at 150, that's fine.
Let's
It
just do
doesn't-
100 from what category?
The jail fee.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nat. Yep.
Thanks, Nate. We're at 100 positive.
That's it.
Well, if we're at 100 positive, you can have 100 for your farmer's market, and then
Or you
they
can
can
put it
make
back
a
in the
decision
police
down the
zones.
road.
You know what? Let's just work with 0. It's just as good as 100.
And did we resolve the issue with the mayor's salary, which can't be?
Now, let's go into that. Okay, let's
That
go
needs
into
to be-
restorations, but I need to do something different on here.
So we're going to look at salaries now.
We're going to look at anything that needs to be restored. Because what's happening is,
Here, that's on page 6.
so if there's any oversights, I'm going to assume that you all approve those oversights. So I think we all need to look at our line items and see how they look.
I put in my report about the city treasurer and the city clerk.
And that created a gap of $2,500.
And I think, Steve, you put in that amount of a 72-cent increase and a 79% or 79-cent increase for the treasurer. And I put that in my report saying that that's a 2.25 cost of living, and then that's a 2% merit raise. And so that's 4.25. And I looked at other things and found that the Johnson County, their non-bargaining employees, they average a 3.56% raise. And so if you figure a 3.5% raise, that's more like 60 cents and 65 cents. And so that was an option. And what Steve puts in is how many hours he thinks they're going to work. And that's been very difficult because, as you know, last year we had 29 meetings, and we usually don't have that many. And so he was estimating hours. So I think you put in the 4.25% in the hours. And so
It was real close.
it was somewhere right around 4%, or, you know, so that's what's in the budget. And so
where I came in.
Yes.
We created by increasing the crossing guard.
Yes.
By increasing the clerk and the treasurer's salaries. Because Harold has not received a raise in 7 years, and because the city clerk and the city treasurer received a raise just this past year, I thought it would be fair that we defer or get money from some other source. And because I know you proposed it, I figured, okay, well, I'm sure we need to come up with the money from some other place. And just like you saw, I just evened out your salary to $1,000. You still make more than the counselors do collectively. And it was just $967 to close the gap. And I don't oppose that we restore you back to $967 since now we've closed the gap.
Well, you know the amount of work I do, right, Sylvia? You've been on council.
I know if anybody knows how to do homework, it's you and I.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. I can't believe
Well,
you said
I mean,
that.
I attended 7 meetings, formal meetings. I represent the city. I don't know why I need to say what I do, but
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know
a
that
little
the debate
insulted
is-
by
So
you
is she
cutting
back
my
at where she's
salary.
supposed
I
to
think
be?
Louise works very hard and does a lot of homework, but I'm surprised that you would include yourself in that.
Let's
Sylvia.
restore. Don't be, Lisa. I'm key too.
Oh, that's
but in
very
any
good.
event,
How do you know about that? Do
So
you have my
let's go
house
ahead.
bugged or something?
967.
Hey, here's
Any-
some happy news. School's 2 hours late tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. So where are you on that, Sylvia?
Okay.
What are you proposing, or?
I just restored to 967. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Oh, here it is, restore.
Right. What else?
Okay, so now we have to find $967?
No. I thought she
No,
did it by-
no, no.
What?
Just figuring another $130 on top of that.
Isn't that under FICA though? So that would be
Oh, yeah.
your salary.
So
and
if she
then-
had it at 1,000,
100 what?
she's adding back
150?
in the 967.
I think you said 170. I don't
What did
know.
you say, Steve?
Oh, 30.
Okay.
So you're saying
Anybody
you
else?
want to remove the clerk and the treasurer's?
No, we're not deficit mode right now. We are in restoring mode, which means if there are any line items that you all want to restore to its prior, if there was a decrease in any of these line items and you need them restored, now we need to talk about that. Aren't we just creating a deficit right now?
Need to be restored.
No, we don't
Think
have a
of any?
deficit anymore.
But you add it back in the mayor, so you're back to 1,000.
Okay, so here's what, Steve, you need to speak and,
Poor Steve.
So the question is,
I don't know.
No one knows.
if we are restoring the
If we restore those 2 items, it'll put us about $1,000 negative.
And we can run with that $1,000 negative in the budget.
Yeah.
We can.
I mean, let's just call it. This is a $2 million budget. We're done.
But it keeps growing every year, Virginia. It keeps growing.
Right, Steve?
Probably in reality, to cover, okay, we restore those. That puts us at about a -1,000.
Sylvia,
We could probably bump the interest income up. It's at $6,000, and I think we were over 6,000, or right at about 6,000 last year. Only at the end of last fiscal year did interest rates on bank accounts start going up. They've gone up a little bit, even if money market went from 1% to 1.1. That is 10%. So,
Okay.
I mean, we could put $500 of additional
we
interest
could
income
spend
in.
45 more minutes looking for $1,000 in this budget and spend 300 on staff salaries while we're sitting in this room. Let's call it. We're done.
I'd rather this be paid very much the same way we're doing the Swisher track instead of seeing the levy increase even by this amount.
Well,
If that's fair, I'm okay with using some of our banking dollars that we have.
So
Let's
Steve
take a
has-
pledge to end every meeting by 9:45. Like I just found $10,000 in our budget. I mean,
and Steve has right now is the grants for the PD is just a $0 balance because we don't obviously know what those will be. I mean, historically that average is 6 to 8, so I don't see any reason why the state, like the traffic funding, would be any different. So once that number is added in there, you're plus 5-ish, even 4,000. You're still plus 3. So
add that in. Let's be done, please.
Okay. I see Nick nodding, Lisa nodding. And you're not nodding off, right?
I'm not nodding.
I know, but so then that's the difference, the 1,000 then.
So this needs to be.
yeah, because we just didn't put it in because we obviously don't know what it's gonna be,
Hold
but-
on.
So you're well, for one thing, you're 100 positive, so
No, we're at 967. plus
You're now
130.
$7,003
sakes,
over.
take it out of my salary. Jeez.
Positive. If you add in 8,000 in PD grants with everything we just did, you're positive $7,003.
Jay should give me a raise.
Oh, I got my mowing back.
Yeah, I mean, even if we only do half that in grants, it's still there. I mean,
Yeah.
8,000 is historically the average.
Put the mowing back, please.
Yes, we need it.
Yeah, if you
And
have
put it at
$7,000,
$1,500 so
put
we
it
can
at
actually contract it whether or not I can find a resident to do it.
I can't believe it's 1,500 for that little bit.
Why does it say minus 900?
There's 3 separate areas. The other quote came back at like 2,600.
Sylvia, I can send this to you. I've been doing a spreadsheet the whole time.
Because it's also.
What do you have for the
If we take out if we remove the lawn mowing, we're now at $5,103 positive.
How much are we with?
Well, we're going to put the lawn mowing back. Oh, I see. Remove it.
I just removed it.
Thank you. I get it.
Right.
Saying
So what's our
removing is
deficit? That's
opposite.
what I want to know.
We're not at a deficit. We're positive $5,103.
So why do I have 900, negative 900?
Because I put in 8,000 for PD grants revenue.
On the income side. Okay.
Okay, so Sylvia has these numbers up there. Do you have the same numbers? Chris?
Now, 8,000, can you tell me more about that? I mean,
So yeah, historically, that's what I'm saying. The governor's traffic safety grants, that number is like I said, looking at a historic number, that's close to what it is. So that was my point. Even if we only were awarded half of that for some reason, as Chris said, it would be in a 5,000 positive. You're still, even adding in the mowing back in, you're still at about $1,000.
and then the Marietta, you're going to
Positive.
you and Nick are going to be working on something because.
Yeah, we're gonna work on a better plan than last year.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, what's next?
I'll snip and send this
So
to
you
Steve.
have
and
all of that.
I'll snip
You
and
have the
send it.
notes, and you have the notes for Steve.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve, for staying.
You survived.
Appreciate it.
2 hours.
And Josiah can leave now, too, because we're done with the budget. And Well, Josiah, you had a little bit more with your engineer's report, maybe, and then you could
I
go.
already read the report. Does anybody
I
else
know,
need?
but I think he wanted to update.
If he has an update, let him give it the update.
I think the public would be interested in an update.
I would be less more interested in that.
Thanks, Josiah, for looking at that. Let me see, where's my mayor's report? Here it is. Is this my new one? Oh, it is. Thanks, Josiah.
So I did submit a written report. Included in that engineer's report was an update on the Olive Court project, which I outlined in the report. And sorry, here we go. So a couple things to point out about it. I thought I would, like you said, provide that update for those listening or watching. So what we talked about last month, the Iowa IDOLS funding request did not meet the next round. I talked to Amy Buska, and she had some good feedback for you, which I posted in the report as well. We completed a bunch of the stuff from last month also about the existing like gas service lines, the water service lines, sewer service lines. Got those coordinated with the utility companies and marked in the field, picked up some of the impacts for that. As I mentioned, was we had shifted some of the new proposed trees and actually reduced some so they weren't right on top of those water and sewer service lines. Mid-American's going to install new gas main on the street as part of the project to replace theirs. I think it was 1965 main. City of Iowa City we're going to replace a portion of the water main. They want to replace the rest of their water main and the water services on that street. That was the one from 1926. It's got some breaks in recent years, so we'll bid that to do our work for sure, and then an alternate so they can look at the costs and hopefully they're in line with what they usually are. And then if that's the case and they want to do it, your project, your contractor will do it, and they will be in agreement with you to pay you back for that work. Iowa City Wastewater similarly is going to have the project replace 2 of the sanitary sewer manholes in the street. Those are brick structures. I don't know what the date is, but quite a while ago. Again, they'll reimburse you for that work. And we did coordinate, this is going back a ways, but coordinating with Mid-American to add 2 additional streetlights, which is shown in there as well on the east side of the street. So we're still on track to get this out to bid end of this month, February. So we're finishing up like a final 100% review set, and we'll email it out with plans and specs and costs to all of you for one last look and any comments or questions.
And so you're going to have that with the next report, the next March 12th?
Yeah, that's typically where we'd set up like a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
For the project.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's what you're expecting, a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you're ready to have those posted on the website, you'll send them to me?
Sure, yep.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the Olive Court project or the report in general?
No, but I want to ask you about something else. Paul Moore called me today, and historically, when we've had really bad winters, the sewer intakes at Kozer and Melrose have to have ice chipped away, and he's having a real flooding problem in front of the entrance to the driveway of Stella, like 6 inches of water there. And he and Nick Lubenthal, he said, we're getting kind of old to be chipping it away, and we haven't had really bad winters. And I know you've done other maintenances on other sewer intake, but I was hoping that we could also take care of those intakes, getting the snow out of them so water can, you know what I'm talking about?
Isn't that through your snow removal contractor?
I guess. that would be appropriate now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think.
Is that how we handled it
I think
before?
it's been a while.
Oh, like Steve Smith when he was doing it?
Yeah, I think he was called to come in and make a special trip to clear storm sewer intakes.
Okay, and I think that's something the council needs to consider doing that.
I thought we gave that direction in the past.
I thought somebody must be doing it on our little block, so it's not me for a change.
And
Okay. Would you like me to contact Hawkeye?
I can actually contact him. I contacted him the last few days because I wanted to give an update to council on how much money we're spending for snow removal, and he's just been way too busy. And he said, I will get it to you in the next week or two, and I figure we'll have it by the work session so we know where we're at. He has an $11,000 bill, but that's up to December 31st. So all these snows since January 11th and beyond, we don't know where we're at, but he has the invoices. He's just busy.
Okay.
And so I want to get that to council. So when I'll talk to him about that. I mean, I think
Yeah,
I know how to say it. If I need direction, I'll ask you.
Okay. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Josiah? Thanks so
Okay,
much,
thanks.
Josiah. I kind of skipped over public input, and Kip, you had said you wanted to speak. Now, can I limit you? I mean, I haven't limited anybody, but can I limit you to like 3 minutes?
No, I'll be very brief.
Thank you,
And
Kip.
The reason why I'm here is I'm excited about the Swisher Tract, and I'd like to invite everyone, to join me in a walk down there to actually look at the possibilities and probably more importantly, the constraints. So that's it.
When?
It's I think, 27th. I'll say 10 a.m., weather permitting. Bring yak tracks, highly recommended. Highly recommended, especially if it's icy and snowy.
Oh, so that's the day of the work session, but the morning.
Excuse me.
February 27th?
23rd. Is that Saturday the 23rd at 10 a.m.?
Ooh, Saturday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. And are you going to be on the Sunset side?
Correct. Sunset
Okay.
at the farthest, right by Mr. Peterson's home.
Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Peterson's home, who I met.
The last street on the
Correct.
on the
At
what would
Sunset,
that be, west.
on the very north end of Sunset.
Okay.
So I want you to know that I did walk it at the Winter Festival where she
Excellent.
had the flags put out. So
The yak.
with
yeah,
with the
that's clever.
snowshoes that they provided
Very good.
at the wonderful Winter
Right.
Festival.
So I'm really excited about this this tract of land that we now own, and I have a lot of ideas. Okay.
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
Kip, thank you for volunteering to be on the tree board.
Oh, my
now
pleasure.
we're going to be working on that vote
I
next.
see you've already taken some of our money. Have a good night.
Just a little. Thank you, Kip. So, anybody else like to speak? Stand still here. No. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to Mayor's report. And first is consideration of resolution number 1903, tree board appointments. And Steve sent an update today. We have 4 people. Catherine Belgum to be reappointed with her term ending 12/31/23. David Bowes with his term ending 12/31/20. Kip Sheldon, you just saw 12/31/22. And then Sean Becerra, that's how you say his name. He agreed today to be appointed to the tree board, and his term will end at the end of this year. So that resolution is before you.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Dottie, second by Lisa. It's a resolution. Roll call vote.
Herbold.
Aye.
Maher.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Casada.
Aye.
Carried.
Congratulations, Kip. And let's see. And then, in my report, I do want to thank Shelley Fravel and Lisa Haverkamp and Sarah Sullivan for their wonderful winter festival. And there were many people helping, like Ken and Pat Yagi and Russ Boyer, for keeping the bonfire going. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful event. And we had one good day with all the bad days around it, so it worked out pretty good. And then I guess that's it on my report, unless you have questions. So we'll go to,
Motion?
we got to get the consideration to motion to contribute $5,000 to the Johnson County Access Center. And Chris put in front of me, and Lori said that this seemed vague when there was a motion by council in July. I think it was in July 2018, and I showed it to Steve and said, could you review that, Steve? And do you want to just mention some of the things?
Yeah, I just said that looking at what was in the minutes, it looked to me like if the council's intention was to contribute $5,000, that should be stated in a motion and voted on. That's why I suggested you put it on the agenda.
So
I will second, I will motion that we adopt what we adopted in July with more clarity to contribute $5,000 to the Johnson County from the 2018-2019 fiscal year.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dottie. Discussion?
Oh, it's an extremely meritorious venture, and the county's been working on it for years, and I vote 5 times for it.
You can only vote once.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. We'll go to the legal report.
I don't have anything to add to my written report.
Okay. Best report so far, Steve.
Thanks.
City clerk report, Chris.
I'm just going to copy Steve and say if you have any questions, reach out to me later.
I did want to bring to council's attention that we need to make a decision on guidance for the invoicing of the city attorney's bills. He gave us 3 options, and I would recommend that we adopt the most transparent billing method, which is hourly rate and the time that the task took, and by whom, and the description of the task, and that's it. That's a standard business practice in nonprofits, in private business, and I think the city is a good place. I also benchmarked that practice with other local municipalities, and it would not be inconsistent. And I'm glad that Steve proposed that as well as an option.
Do you want to say anything, Steve? No?
No, however you all want to do it. So you're saying option 1? Is that what you
The
said?
one with all the, I can't remember which option, because it was
okay.
on an email, but it gives us a rate, your rate and the amount of time that it took to complete.
Sounds like option 3 to me.
I think that's right.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to provide the guidance that Steve requested.
With option 3. Is there a second?
Provided we can actually do this today, since it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
You can tell me how you want to be billed. That's fine.
So it was
Okay.
first. Who was the
So who seconded it?
Virginia.
Virginia? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, carries. So we go to the treasurer's report and payment of the bills. Lori sent all the warrants. Are there any additions or corrections? To who? Oh, down at the bottom? The 19,100? Okay, are there any objections to paying the bills? Hearing none, the bills will be paid by unanimous consent. Then, Nate, you submitted a chief report. Are there any questions for Nate? And then, Nick, did you want to talk about your report? Or?
Just say pizza with police is rescheduled
Oh.
for February 26th, 5:30 to 6:30 at City Hall.
26.
That's Tuesday,
I'm sorry, what was that?
February 26th,
Say it again.
5:30 to 6:30.
What is it?
Pizza with police is Tuesday, February 26th, from 5:30 to 6:30. Good, I'll be around then.
Seems like
weather
too
does not-
close for
Yeah.
comfort to me.
We tried to push it out further, but then spring break plans
Yeah.
for people and everything, I think it just gets difficult.
Hey,
so
the weather's
hopefully it
gonna be
works out.
good.
Yep.
And then I just have rest is in my written report.
Okay. So we'll go to Virginia.
Actually, if the rest is in your written report, are you taking comments on the proposed resolution regarding time management? Or do you want to table that for the next month?
I did not put it on the agenda. That's just FYI so that people know what I'm doing and,
Just
yeah,
in his
feel free to
report.
give me
Take comments
feedback.
offline.
if you
So
want.
can I give you feedback at the next meeting?
I would say send
If
me
not, I'll just
feedback
do it now.
before the next, you could send me feedback.
Well, I have the feedback now. I generally agree with the spirit of the resolution, and I like Virginia's idea that we should quit at 9:30. I think it's doable. But one concern I do have is the operation of the agenda placement. If all counselors are going to be required to place the agenda items a week ahead of the meeting, I think we all need to have access to the final listing of those agenda items on the same day that all of us have a deadline on it. So if it's due at 5 p.m. on Monday, I think we all should be released what those agenda items are at 5 p.m. or within an hour of the closing on the same date. And then the question is, the public needs to know, even more so than of us, what the agenda is about. So I don't see a corresponding agenda publication that has the same level of commitment to generating the agenda items and then the ultimate agenda that controls the meeting. So I would encourage you to include a 24-hour period of turnaround for the agenda to the public so they too can, get prepared. And number two, I'd like to see equal access for the counselors to agenda items at the same time.
That means everyone has to turn in their items on time, no exceptions.
Sure. And I think that's a pretty good.
No exceptions.
I get you.
The 5 days, I think I was tracking what the current practice is, right?
Yeah, that's Thursday.
It's the same deadline every month, so you can submit them early. It's not a problem. I star them when they come into my email.
Mm-hmm.
We have historically let things go past the deadline, which I personally do not agree with. So if we are going to adopt this, I am strongly stating that we have to meet the deadlines. And as you saw tonight, when there is a written report or some type of document, please send it to me as well, because thank you, Lisa, for sending me the items, but I need to have the information. I need to have the reports. I put them into a minutes notebook. If I don't get it, then I have to take an additional step of going into the attachments to get it. So you're just creating more salary for me.
So that would be my one thing I do like. And I wanted to ask you if you could please include a recital that you don't intend by any means to suggest that counselors operate outside of open meetings, because that's the other risk by placing all these items in a folder without a corresponding agenda getting published. I think counselors need to be prepared, and it means both. It could be, a 5-0 vote, or it could be a partisan vote, or it could be a very divided vote, but I think everybody needs to have equal access to those agenda items at the same time. So I think that's one of the biggest administrative comments that I had on the resolution. Otherwise, I appreciated the effort. I think it'll save us money and a personal time for the counselors and the public involved.
Any other comments? Okay.
So you're
we'll
just
go-
talking about agenda items. What about all of those attachments that come trickling in?
I think that's hard to get.
Okay.
So
Please
we'll-
do send me more feedback, though. I mean, I'll be updating this and try to get something obviously disclosed in advance so that maybe we'd be able to vote on it next month.
I mean, I think people, when you put something on the agenda like a resolution and then a resolution never is sent out, I mean, why is that ending up on the agenda? That would be one of my questions.
Because somebody's obviously making a guess that the agenda item needs to be tabled.
Well, if you didn't send it out, why is it on the agenda? Was my question, actually.
Okay, we'll go to building, zoning, and sanitation. And Virginia, you have first consideration of ordinance number 236.
Yes, this ordinance adds 8 words to the existing housing ordinance, those 8 words being or domestic partner, comma, the parents of the owner.
I second. Oh,
I don't think we need to have a lot more discussion on this.
So that's a first.
Motion, yep.
and I second.
Motion by Virginia, second by Sylvia. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Maher,
Aye.
Can I?
Oh, you want to, I'm sorry, I didn't look up at the
Do
audience.
we have some public comment?
The website is down, so I wasn't able to look exactly what this is. I'm a little concerned about exempting owner-occupied dwellings from rental permit requirements. Can we talk about what that looks like? And is that, I don't think that's in the ordinance now, correct?
Yeah,
It
that
is,
was Steve's title. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
That-
I mean, owner-occupied dwellings are exempt from rental permits.
Sure. So we're permitting kids. So if the parents buy the house and put a kid in the house,
The parents have to live there.
parents have to live there. Okay.
It's all right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Did you have any other concerns around that?
That was my concern.
Okay.
Okay, did anybody else want to comment? Any more? Okay, this is first consideration of number 236. Roll call vote.
Maher,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Casada,
Aye, and I have a
Verbal.
special, oops. I have a special
5-0
request.
carried.
I have a special request, because we are adding so many changes to ordinance 236. Can we just restate the ordinance in its completion? Because it's the latest ordinance that we have guiding the public on what our rental program rules are, and it should be in
I'll
better
read you this
shape.
paragraph.
I know, but you know what? How do you know what else is missing and how many other paragraphs in ordinance? I'm just saying, restate it.
I'm not going to restate it right now. You read it
Not
on the
you.
website.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I think we need to give Steve Ballard direction to prepare a restatement of all of these changes so that we have one collective document going forward.
So every time there's an ordinance that amends another ordinance, we put together, the amended ordinance, so there's a complete statement of the current law as amended.
Yeah, that for internal use, but not for the public. I'm worried
No,
about
it's,
it's
that's,
not-
and
it's
that goes on the website.
It's a terrible system of looking back to ordinance 236, ordinance 29.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. That's my point. You look at 110, and you
It's the
can
whole
read
thing.
it from A to Z, and at the bottom, kind of like an annotation in a statute, it'll say, this ordinance was changed by this and by that, but the entire ordinance, as changed, is there.
Right.
So how do you want it if that's not what you
I
want?
like the way you adopted it the first time with chapters and subchapter provisions, and I think it's going right back to ordinance 110. I think you borrowed it from some other municipal format because that's not the way I've seen you conduct ordinance initiations.
Well, that's the way it is now, is it not? Yeah.
No.
I guess I don't know what
I'll
you're-
bring an example of what I mean. I'll just take that off the line.
Okay, so now you're going to discuss garbage contract.
Our garbage contract with Johnson County Refuse expires at the end of June, which affects single-family homes only. This will prompt no change for Grandview or for One University Place. We're going to have to make some major changes to the way we do garbage pickup. We need to switch to the wheeled carts that are picked up by a lever arm. We cannot continue having guys walk behind the truck and lift the carts or lift our garbage cans physically into the truck anymore. There is no one that will be providing that type of service. If we cannot make this change this year, Johnson County Refuse will give us one more year the way our contract currently is. But the reason they're making this switch, and they have already switched all of their other municipal contracts, is because this sort of work causes too many workers' comp claims and too many injuries. And so I think it would be pretty immoral of us to put workers in harm's way for another year just because we're afraid of making a change. I reached out to some other garbage providers to see if we could get a competing proposal to compare against Johnson County Refuse. ABC Disposal was supposed to send me something by Friday, they missed that deadline and called and said they'd send it by Tuesday, and I didn't hear from them today. So I would go ahead and conclude that that's not the level of service we're interested in, especially when we have gotten such exemplary service from Steve Smith. So I laid out in my report the changes that we have to make if we continue with Steve Smith and sign another contract with him. He would be looking for a 10-year contract.
Wow.
He would provide us with all new wheeled garbage carts for garbage and for recycling. He would pick up and recycle all the old containers for residents free of charge. And then we would need to get everybody paying a monthly fee of $12.75 per month per house.
Is that on top of recycling?
That is if the city still pays for recycling out of the general fund, which in the budget we just closed out is what's happening.
So he's asking for 127.5 in 10 months plus, okay. So let me ask you a question. What is he going to do about composting?
Same, no changes.
No. Is he going to be able to pick it up uniformly through all residential properties?
There'll be no changes to the composting program. You can still get a cart for $25 and buy your bags.
So we still have to buy the cart and buy the bags and support that element. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a 10-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any rate increases in these 10-year contracts?
No.
Okay. So there's no escalation. So
And part of the $12.75 that you pay per month covers the cost of him providing all new carts for garbage and recycling to
but
everybody.
we can probably get a DNR REAP award or grant to cover that. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. My question also goes to you. Did you ask Republic? Republic is another provider.
Yeah, I tried, could not get through to them.
So you tried. Okay.
Yeah. Again, like it was just very.
Let me work on a contact for them. And then the second one is, I'm a big supporter of composting. I think for greenhouse emission and conservation efforts, it's the right thing to do. And I think we can do it. And I'm glad that Johnson County Refuge has provided that service. But I know that I'd like to see us not nickel and dime our residents. Can we find out if Iowa City may have capacity to be interested in filling up the donut?
Iowa City doesn't take glass.
That's okay, but I mean, can we just find out what our options are?
We
with
did
Iowa
find
City?
out Iowa City is not interested.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
We did ask Iowa City if they wanted to pick up garbage for us, and they do not want to.
If maybe we introduce the fact that they are within the perimeter of University Heights, every day they pick up their garbage. There would be no additional transfer.
I think they're pretty well aware.
Well, they're on Tower Court. They're down on my street. They're over on the other side of the Horn School. And it's just a no-brainer. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't think they want to deal with.
They weren't interested in leaf vacuuming. They weren't interested in.
They didn't have to pass.
I
asked Dottie.
Snow removal. They weren't interested in snow removal.
But this is so there already that I can't. I think
You're welcome to call yourself.
Yeah, I don't know anybody down there, but.
So I would say I appreciate Virginia's efforts, and Louise
Mm-hmm.
also I know has been helping. I appreciate being involved. I know that you've done due diligence here to look into other options. I'm just curious, what is our next step to get this going? What do you suggest?
Because it's just too much. That's too expensive, I think, for citizens.
Right. There's going to be some folks that
We've got to get a better price than that.
People will not be able to opt out. Everyone will have to be in on the same service. And that's been the same process. Households will not be able to opt out of garbage service. Everyone will need to be on the new service.
Yeah, I don't like
and that's the same that it's been for every other city that they've already made this switch for Kelowna and for Solon and for North Liberty.
For them,
And
you
Steve
mean
Smith
for
was very upfront that people initially were pretty upset, and then all those people came to really love it.
Well, and he also knows what happened. He explained what happens if you let people opt out, then garbage starts getting put in neighbors'
cans, and
if you have different rules with if you have huge recycling, the small garbage isn't, then people put the garbage in the recycling. He's seemed to be pretty well versed at the pitfalls of the other options.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but he has an ox to gore, and I mean, that price is exorbitant. We've already showed why the city is not attractive with the streets and sidewalks and the budget, and now we're laying on more debt for garbage collection and
The
compost.
price will be lower than anybody pays in Iowa City, Solon, North Liberty, Coralville, because the city covers the recycling portion.
Well, that's
I think it's a fine price. I mean, we hardly put out garbage, and I'm fine with going with this because I think it will improve things in our neighborhoods.
Lisa is going her own ox in this case, I think.
I mean,
she is an example of someone who is
So,
able
Virginia-
to get by with.
This is going to be tough for some people.
So,
I
Virginia, let me ask
want
you
to
a
be
question.
honest about that.
We're looking
but
am I looking at this right? So 153 per year just for garbage. Does that include recycling? Because the recycling fee is
no, because recycling is paid for out of the general fund.
Yeah, but we're all paying that as taxpayers. So what are we looking at?
So $12.50 times 12.
153 per year. Now,
Or,
The
I guess I
recycling
have-
is the
450 is I think recycling.
595, didn't you say?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
595 times 12, we're looking at 59.
Yep,
plus
it's $153 per household per year.
So he's looking to charge us 240 cents per year.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to, go ahead and call him and ask him what everybody else pays.
I can do that. I just need.
We do get a special. Yeah, he's
What-
giving us $1 off per household because
I think it'd be a good idea to discuss this in depth
Right.
I think
at a special
I think
meeting or a
Yeah.
work
I think
session. What do
we
you?
need to investigate it further.
sure.
See what else.
I'm saying this is going to be a little tough for people to handle. I am also saying there is not a better option.
And I'm just curious.
It is what it is.
Assuming we're putting together the next step for this, that's what I was curious about. What does this mean? Do we need to have a special meeting? Do we need to have a resolution? What do we need to
Well,
do?
we do have a work session on the 27th of February at 7:00 for the Swisher track. Now, how long do you see that? What do we need to?
I don't know, maybe 45 minutes.
Half hour, 45 minutes? Well, we could add it to that night.
Could we go earlier?
I can go earlier on the 27th.
What day of the week is it?
It's
It's a Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. It's already scheduled for 7:00. And we could invite Steve Smith to that work session. We could have him bring some of the carts and go into deep discussion with some of this and get some of council's questions answered. You wrote a nice thing in your report explaining it. And I think we need to spend some more time on this. And I think if we can add it to that work session, I think instead of having a separate one,
I think we need to entertain more people than Steve Smith, though, if we're going to bring other people in, because I'm not at all happy with the service I get. And I pay a heck of a lot of money, and I don't have a lot of bags, and he doesn't ever take it unless I have 2 stickers. And they throw the stuff all around now it's all over the front yard in the snowdrifts. That's not acceptable. I'm sorry.
So let's have a work session and you can discuss all that and the details of this on the 27th. And maybe starting earlier is a good idea. Can you that night?
I don't think I can, but I
Okay.
would be opposed to you starting until I'm back from a child event. So
Maybe we could start at 6:30. Or
Okay.
I don't know. What do you want to do? Dottie, how's your schedule?
I just didn't go at 7. I just,
Get it over with.
I think
Does
it's
that work for you? So
it's harder to
Yeah, I can
get.
try, but if we do 7.
we already have it for 7.
Okay, yeah, keep it at
Yeah.
7.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I want to include as
Keep. There's 3 right there.
include as many people as possible.
You need what?
7:45.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I may need to leave before the meeting's over.
Oh, okay.
But
it's a difficult night for her. She might have to leave before the meeting's over. Okay, so we'll add that to the work session, and if we need another work session, we'll go from there. And we need. When this was presented to me, I thought it was a good idea to do it this year instead of passing it on to a new council next year. And that's my thought, too.
And I just can't see watching those guys lifting garbage for another year when we have an option to not be making
So
them do that.
automation will be replacing their jobs. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, they're actually not laying off anybody as they make this change. They're just eliminating injurious tasks, which I put in my report. They actually are
So each
hiring.
okay, I'll ask you questions on that on the day of. Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Yeah, no, he's been seeking to increase his staffing levels, but he can't find people that are willing to do this particular task.
Well, and we have a lot of people that seem to be taking advantage of Johnson County refuse by just dumping stuff at the curb.
How are they taking it?
Well, I can show you photos, Dottie, later, but it's just a mess.
Okay.
It's a mess in my area.
Okay, now you had other things. Did you want to?
It's in my report. You can read it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Sylvia?
In the interest of time, we're now 3 hours into this meeting. I'm going to table all topics until the next council meeting in March.
Well,
I'm going to table everything until March. It's 3 hours. We started at 7, and
investing the city CDs?
we don't
Is that
have
not
a specific
timely
motion.
somewhat?
You know what? It's a conceptual concept.
Okay.
The fact that we're moving it to March doesn't have an impact. We could move it to the 27th if you want the concept. Otherwise, I'm tabling in the interest of time.
Lori, are
because
you
it's 3
okay
hours.
with March 12th for the CDs? Is it timely for you? I know you spoke to some people. You and Sylvia have been working
That's
on
right.
it.
I'm ready.
Did she agree with that?
I don't, it doesn't matter. We have been postponing and delaying this and missing this since November, December, and January. So in my opinion, it's 10 p.m. We don't gain or lose anything. I can't make a motion on any CD dollars because it's not properly titled in the agenda item. So the next best available thing is at the next meeting. So
It says
actually,
Well, you could have
It says
submitted the
27th.
proper wording if you wanted a certain kind of wording.
Lori, are you available on the 27th?
We already have someone that
We
needs
have
to
too
leave
many
early,
meetings on the
so I think
27th.
we
Yeah.
shouldn't add more
right.
into that
I
meeting.
don't think we should add it on the
Okay,
27th.
perfect. Then let's just leave it in the report for March.
Okay. And then you'll word the agenda item as
Yeah.
you want?
Yep, so we can take action. We need to take action.
Okay, can I ask, what does disclosure policy concerning council versus individual council action mean? What does that mean? I mean, what is that
I'm
resolution? I just
tabling-
want to know ahead of time
We can
instead
ta-
of the night
sure.
up.
We can talk about it later, Louise. I just don't want to take any more public time. It's 10 p.m. I'm not trying to be onerous.
Well, it's been
I'm
on the
just
agenda for
recognizing.
2 months, and I've never seen any
Other
writing
people-
about it.
other-
We're all curious about it.
It's tabled.
Are you curious too?
I'm
It's
curious too. I've been seeing it
My
on the
motion,
agenda.
end of discussion. Is there a second? Nick, since you're
be-
advancing.
I'm going to go to e-government report. I don't think she's the mayor. I'm the mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Fromm.
Yes.
I submitted a written report, and I think we're done.
Okay, are there any questions for Lisa? Okay, so remember pizza with, and
Announcements.
Stan wants to say something. Announcements.
I'm going to give you a realistic expectation about snow removal on sidewalks over this next week.
Oh,
So it still snowed today. So nothing can happen tomorrow, even though it's packed down. We don't have the authority to say, go out there and remove it. Hopefully people in their goodwill will go and remove it. Probably won't happen, but still. The other difficulty that we have is in the snow and rain event that we had last night, there's a layer of ice underneath there. So that's going to be very difficult for people to get up. If you followed along anywhere, there's limited supply of ice removal products. So we need to be a little bit conscientious of that. Yes, we want people to get out there, get their sidewalks cleared. Unfortunately, this weekend, temperature is supposed to drop, which is not going to help us at all. So I would encourage people to walk safely. I would encourage people to help their neighbors out, but we're going to have to go forward with a little bit of wisdom.
Thanks for the reminder,
Yep.
too.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
And the other announcement, of course, is Remember Pizza with Police is February 26th, Tuesday night from 5:30 to 6:30 here at the Community Center. Are there any other announcements? Is there any objection to adjournment? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you very much.